We good?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome into the matchup report. Back here for another NFL episode. Just got done with another fun and exciting was it the divisional round of the playoffs here. Ready to head into the conference. Very up and down with the games this week. I feel like the that first round was a lot of like craziness, and like we had all those fourth quarter changes, and then we get to the divisional round, and it's just turnover after turnover and just weird stuff happening. But it leads to what I think will be an exciting conference championship round, and then well, obviously we'll see what happens with the Super Bowl. But I'm still excited about these future matchups. How about you?
I'm. I think. Okay. I'm excited, yes, but I think at the same time, I also look at these games and say, like, I think especially this divisional round, the way it played out, I can look at this and say, I feel like we have a much better picture of like what teams are real and what about them is real and what's sustainable, especially through these final two games. You feel me?
100%. Yeah, because it's like, and we'll talk about this in some of the games we go through, but like you can kind of like, this maybe just be like a me thing, but and I don't want to say this is like a vibes thing, but like there's always like a feeling you get with some teams where like certain plays will happen or certain games or certain things will happen like throughout a game and or a season where you're kind of looking at a team like okay like there's something special happening here and it feels like you just have that feeling of like I could see them in the Super Bowl. Like I remember when the
I,
Eagles won the first Super Bowl that
I was
season
gonna
when
say, I
Jake
thought,
Elliott hit that 60 plus yard field goal against the Giants to win the game. I specifically remember like, and that was so long ago now, just being like, oh, okay, maybe this team actually can do something.
now, now everybody hates Jake.
Yeah.
But that same season, much later, it was the final, it was the conference championship against Minnesota,
Mhm.
and it was I saw a clip and it was like, oh, like these memories, and it was like Corey Clement dancing to Dreams and Nightmares on the field before the game, and he was like, you just knew this team wasn't going to lose at the link. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like
Well, it was even the game before that in the playoffs that they had when remember
that would have been
what
no, that would have been Saints.
yeah, well, remember when they played the Falcons the first round of the playoffs that year? I think it was.
I
And
do.
then they had a ball where it was like they had to get a first down and it got tipped up and then one of the Eagles receivers like still got it somehow. And I feel bad. I'm forgetting the name of the receiver, which one got it, but because I know it wasn't Alshon, but dude, that game was just like that. The moments like that, we're like, okay, like even when they mess up and it looks like this game should be over and they shouldn't win, like they're just winning. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just, and there was a moment like that with one of the teams this last week, and that we'll talk about that happened where I was like, okay, like if you're getting stuff like this to happen, then you clearly are like you've got a little bit of destiny tied to you. It
Yeah.
feels like, but there's destiny, and then there's getting punched in the mouth and losing a football game. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's get into it though. I do want to talk about these past matchups. There's a lot to talk about because some of these games had big implications for what's going to be happening here in the offseason. Lots of drama now happening, especially because of the first game we're going to be talking about, which is the Bills and the Broncos. Um, Man, they started off the weekend with a crazy one, that's for sure. Another game that goes to overtime. A lot of craziness towards the in the fourth quarter and towards the end. Obviously, goes to overtime and a lot of craziness towards the end of the game. We're seeing that a lot with these playoff games. Um, this was the Broncos win. Spoiler, but it's the Broncos. This was their first playoff win since they won the Super Bowl in 2015. So big for them, right? Huge moment for Bo Nix and Sean Payton and just the organization in general, able to pull this off after what was a surprise season for them. I think for a lot of people, like a lot of us thought, like okay, their defense can be really good. We just don't know if we're gonna get out of the offense with Bo Nix and everything. They go on that huge win streak. They stumble a little bit as they get towards the playoffs, but they're able to again, like we've seen this with the Broncos all year, where it's a close game and you get to those like clutch minutes, and they're able to come out on the other side with a W, and they do it here again even though it comes out after this game that Bo Nix broke his ankle, and he broke it apparently like before the end of that last drive, whereas like he actually had to make a couple plays with that broken ankle. And I mean, hey, adrenaline's a hell of a drug, but
At least they said the second to last play, and on the play, it was the one where he rolls out to the left.
hmm,
And I was and it's funny because like people were looking at it and saying like, what happened? Like doesn't look like anything. You look at the footage, like he gets up, he kind of like it's like, oh, it's weird, but like not to the extent of a broken ankle, like to
yeah,
that degree. I think that's the crazy part.
because like everything from what I've read, because I was also like, well, like, when does anyone have like exactly when I got hurt? And like according to like some of the articles I was reading, through was it the Athletic, ESPN. It sounds like everyone's like it happened on when Cole Bishop tackled him, like right before he had to make those two deep passes for the what ended up being the pass interference calls. So it was like when he was making those deep passes, apparently he had a broken ankle, which is just nuts. But hey, credit to him for toughing that out and putting his team in a position to win. But of course, and we'll be talking about both teams equally here. But the main story after this game ended up being Josh Allen and then the repercussions of losing this game to the Broncos, because Josh Allen had one of his worst games he's ever had in his entire life. Like I'm not even just saying NFL. Like this is one of the worst games he's ever had. Um, he had two picks and two fumbles in this game. He actually fumbled it three times, but lost two of them. And they were all bad. Like I'm not gonna like excuse any of them. Like they were all bad. Like Josh Allen had a legitimately bad game.
The one before the half was the worst one because and look, I
Was
think
that the Shady McCoy one?
yeah,
Where
the
he-
shit.
yeah, because he's running around with the ball. Like if you remember how Shady McCoy used to run with the ball, LaShawn McCoy, the former Eagles running back, like, he would always like have it out. Like
Yeah.
he would have it like, like away.
He at least still had some like ball like it was very little ball security, but there was some degree of like he has like at least 2 points of contact, I should say.
Yeah, it was just away from his body.
But yeah, Josh Allen has it full like grip, just out and about. And it was clearly like it was one of those things where like as people who watch sports constantly, and you're thinking in your head like, oh, this is what they should do, this is what they should do. You're watching this and you're like, all right, like scramble, good move, good move. Try to get to the sideline, get to the sideline, get to the sideline. All right, probably just to protect the ball. Nope, he's fumbled it. Like that's exactly what was going through my head with this, and I'm like, that was just dumb because then you look where they are field goal wise or field position wise, and they ended up being able to get a field goal before half, and obviously you look at the score of this, and it's like, oh well, that was a difference maker. That one turnover, like just a careless play. Yes, you could poke fun at all the interceptions and look at all of this and say like, well, this is what caused the team the game. But for me, that is a play like before half where it's like that changes the momentum of things. Like it's much easier to go into the half with a field goal than conceding a field goal off of a dumb fumble. And okay, I'll get this out the way now too, because you mentioned like just Josh Allen having a really bad game. The media, if you were to ask them, it would not say the same. And
Yeah, I was gonna get into this with you because the response to everything after this game was so weird.
it was a lot of discussion of, oh, Josh Allen played his heart out, like this is what we come to expect from a player like him. And I'm like, did y'all see where he was? And then we have media people on like TV talking, like reviewing the fumble and talking, well, his offensive lineman should have jumped on it. And it's like, why would his offensive lineman have to jump on it if he maybe if he should have fumbled in the first place? We wouldn't have to
Also, asking O lineman to jump on a like, it's always such a bad situation for an O lineman because one, they're not the most like. There's little guys out there with a lot of speed trying to jump on it, right? But like O linemen do try to jump on it, but not 9 times, most of the time, I feel like if a quarterback is fumbling the ball, your O lineman's got their back to you. They're not going to see everything. There's going to be a late reaction. So to put that on O lineman is just asinine.
Yeah, and like I understand to some degree where it's like the O lineman clearly had a clean shot at it and he just overshot it, went over top of the ball. But even then, like that doesn't happen if Josh is more careful with the ball. Like this is an MVP that we are talking about. And to what degree do we hold him to MVP standards and say this is something that should not be happening? Like you are an MVP of the league. You are still one of the best players. You have everyone says about the arm talent, the legs, and how unstoppable you are. To be unstoppable, you need to be able to protect the ball, be able to put your team in winning situations. And there were so many times throughout this game that we saw him do the exact opposite. And then the media comes out and says, well, like he played his heart out, he did all he could. And they're like, oh, well, what about his receiving core? Like, like his receiving core is dropping passes and he's not getting the help that he needs to do this. Or his offensive line is protecting him. And looking at his receiving core, and this has been the knock on the Bills all season. It's something that we talked about going into the playoffs as a concern. But I wouldn't say that it was necessarily an issue on their part. Like you look at the receivers, Dalton Kincaid had 6 catches, 83 yards. Khalil Shakur, 7 catches, 75 yards. Like I would look at that and say like, hey, like you had good productivity from the players that like, hey, you need these yards from, you need targets from. Go ahead and do that. You had Keon Coleman make a great play down there, and he's been talked about a lot. Like these were all things where it felt like everything that the offense, his supporting cast could have done, it was done to the best of their ability. Especially going up against this Broncos team, which is notorious. Especially they had the most sacks in the league. Like this isn't uh, this isn't the Raiders, okay? Like this is the Broncos. Like to do all this, you have to, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the other great defensive teams. Like you need to be able to play a style of football that is like careful, really. And I think that is the biggest thing with them is that they're going to try to force turnovers, they're going to try to force fumbles, they're going to try to force interceptions, and they're so good at that. So what do? You protect the ball, you make the safe plays, you do what you need to do. And I think so many times we look at Josh Allen and say, we need you to play unconscious. And I think this was a game where it's like, yes, to some degree, you still do want him making those Superman plays. Save that for when your team is driving in the fourth quarter and trying to win the game. I think that's a different scenario, and that's where we should see these type of things. That's where we should see Josh Allen put in a Superman cape to get big first downs to keep drives going. This shouldn't be like towards the. I don't think the situation of the a few seconds left in the second quarter and you're deciding to make this run, like that is a careless decision more than a I'm putting on a Superman cape and getting my team in field goal range. And especially now we know the outcome of it. Like it's a lot. And I feel like it was very easy for media to say like, well, like Josh Allen did all he could. It's a supporting cast, like it's everyone but him. And I think at some point we need to look internally and say like, how much of this is Josh Allen's fault, and like really saying like we shouldn't be giving him like the grace that he has.
Yeah, turnovers were really kind of a theme of the weekend with all these games. But I mean, starting with Josh Allen in this game, and I mean he wasn't the only one, but you turn the ball over constantly like this, and you're going to put your team in a bad spot, like your defense in a bad spot every time. I mean, 5 turnovers is crazy, man. Like the defenses can't handle. I mean, look at the Texans, right? We're going to talk about them later. The best defense in the league. There's only so much they can do if you're constantly giving the other offense good field position to start their drives. You're asking too much of your defense, and it's a defense that we talked about that is like they kept praising it throughout the game, talking about like, oh, this is the number one pass defense. I think that kind of depends on what your metrics that you're looking at are for it, because I don't think I would consider the Bills the best pass defense, especially if you're just looking at personnel. There's definitely guys you can get after. Yeah. So, and I think the Broncos kind of took advantage of that at times with them and their inexperience or just their lack of skill. But yeah, you turn the ball over like this. You can't praise a team like the Bills before and during the game talking about like they have a good O-line. They have one of the best running backs in the game who led the league in rushing. You have a defense that they're trying to now call the best pass defense in football.
Like
yeah, and then all that. So you can't preface and during the game talk about, oh, he has all these weapons and things around that could go well for him, but there are still areas like the receivers. Well, he'll need to like overcompensate a bit as the quarterback. But then after the game, you can't say, well, it's like, oh, well, the team let him down. It's like, no, Josh Allen, like we're just being completely honest here. Josh Allen let his team down, and I know he admitted it, and that's like you probably like, well, that's just what the quarterback's supposed to do. He let his team down. I'm sorry, like he was crying. It's supposed to be emotional, but I mean, look, they didn't lose the Super Bowl. I didn't see Jalen Hurts cry after they lost, notoriously, right? Like teams lose all the time. There's emotion and things like that. But the cold hard fact is, he let his team down. He had a bad game, and he is the main reason they are not moving on to the conference championship. And this is becoming a trend, right? It's not always Josh Allen's fault, but the fact that like he's never won an overtime game ever is concerning, right? Like you put the Bills in close games, they aren't good. It's just what we've seen with them. And it's funny too that like they lose in these playoff overtime wins when the playoff overtime rules were changed because of them, because of what happened to them with the Chiefs, and they still can't win these overtime games even though they're getting extra chances to win them like they asked for. It's just it was rough to watch, and it was what made it worse was after the game, when you're getting all the reports and like things coming out and all the media saying like, oh, you really got to feel bad for him. When it's like, do I? Because I'm pretty sure y'all act differently with other teams and other quarterbacks. So why are we picking and choosing which ones we can feel bad for and which ones we can't? Yeah. Like I feel bad for every team that loses. Like there's like a floor level of like, like, oh, that sucks for them. That, even if I play like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's always like a level of like, it sucks that this team lost.
You say like, you had a hell of a season. You weren't supposed to be here. You did everything you could. It's going to be so excited to see what y'all are able to come up next season with as y'all continue to, get more talent in the roster, on the roster, and you get just everything starts to click. You start to get to the next year steps. People start to take those jumps and become better. Like, you're excited for those type of things.
Yeah, but we're not going to sit here and like lie about like what happened in this game. But what happened is in this game is one quarterback played significantly worse than the other, and even though that their team actually kind of kept them in this game despite all these turnovers, because the Broncos weren't able to take full advantage of them getting all these turnovers. The fact that this was even a close game with how bad the Bills were playing kind of says something about the Broncos. But the Broncos, again, you get them in this close situation, they're able to win, while a team that has as much playoff experience with the players and the leaders that were on this team aren't ever able to come through for you on a team that has this much playoff experience. It's just extremely disappointing. But after all this happens, right? Oh, by the way, real quick, before we talk about more of like the coaching stuff that happened, we really do need to talk about the Broncos defense. They're so good. Like, Zach Allen led the team more pressures again. He's one of the best D tackles in football. There were multiple plays where he was just in Josh Allen's face. He had to do something. But then it's like you have that, but then on the back end you also have help from him with guys like McMillan who are getting picks, and all their DBs are like really good. I mean, people will say what they want to say about Riley Moss, but like this secondary does enough to like help out the front line, where you have guys like Benito and Zach Allen who are constantly getting after the quarterback and constantly getting pressure, which is like you said, there's a team that led the league in sacks. They're going to get after the quarterback, but just because you're getting pressure in your face like this doesn't mean you panic and make these bad decisions. But the Broncos were able to, the defense, I think, was like one of the big reasons they were able to stay in this game. Now, if you're a Bills fan and you're listening to this, you're probably saying, well, what about the refs? The pass interference calls are what they are. I'm sorry, but that's just the NFL. Do I agree that every pass interference call should just go to the spot? No, I do think it should be changed to the 15-yard rule like they do in like the college and high school and all that, right? It should be like a 15-yard penalty in my mind, because those are two big game-swinging plays that happen for them at the end of the game. And then there's the interception, right, that the Bills are still complaining about, like from ownership down. Yeah. Like the owner straight up still saying, like today during a press conference, I think it was, that like, by the way, that was a catch. And it's like, okay, but it wasn't. So like it. And no matter what the logistics are, because I do want to get your opinion on this, I think it was an interception. But no matter what you think it was, the refs called it a different way, and you just had to go on. You had to move on. So,
real quick, and this is the last thing I'll say about the whole like Josh Allen praise stuff. Like everyone's talking about like give it up to him and everything, and rightfully so. I think the same thing is being said about Bo Nix, but I think to some degree it's not enough. Because I think what you needed to see from Josh Allen in this game, you saw from Bo Nix. And yes, you mentioned like it wasn't a situation of like the Broncos offense always consistently taking advantage of it, but he didn't turn the ball over too much, or as much as Josh Allen. He did have a couple.
He had one pick.
Yeah, one pick and then a fumble. But like you look.
Oh no, he didn't have a fumble.
Oh, I guess not. Okay, I'm looking at info.com. It says it has a fumble. We'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, I don't know how they're calling it, but either way, yeah.
I'll figure out who that is later.
Even if he did have turnovers, that's three less than, you know what I'm saying?
That's a lot less than Josh Allen. But either way, you look at the stats, and Bo Nix was still the Broncos' leading rusher. Like, McLaughlin, 4 carries, 21 yards. R.J. Harvey, 6 carries, 20 yards. And Bo Nix has 12 carries, 29 yards. Combined with nearly 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, everything that we needed to see from Josh Allen, we saw from Bo Nix. And now we're not going to even see him, probably until, I don't know timeline for broken ankles.
But he'll probably be available by the start of the season.
Yeah. But either way, like, that is the type of thing that I look at this and say, like, everyone's going to be focused on the Josh Allen thing and say, well, he gave it his all. He's one of the best players in the league. And it's like, well, and I think this is another issue is that, like, and this is, I think it's a thing across NFL and the NBA is that so many times we rely on, like, all right, when there's a star, like, you constantly lean on them and they get all the attention, but when they're beat by like another up and coming star, everything's like, well, like, but the other one who's a mainstay of the league is giving it his all, and at what point, and obviously, like, I know it's kind of sour by the fact that he got injured, but at what point does like Bo Nix really kind of get the credit? And I think like he's one of the people that I think that, yes, we were expecting him to say, like, hey, we need you to step up before the fourth quarter so these games aren't constantly getting close. But the fact that like no matter what, he's still able to deliver in the clutch still says something. And I think that is really what I constantly go back to every time I think about this game, and the fact that like he is constantly doing what he needs to do to win games. And I think like every time I went back in my notes to take notes about this, I was like, he did what I would have wanted to see from Josh Allen. And yes, like you can compare the receiving cores, and you can say like, oh, Cortland Sutton is better than probably anyone the Bills have. But like Marvin Mims was their leading receiver, 8 catches, 93 yards. Like that
He
is
caught
like,
it was 8 targets, 8 catches from Mims.
yeah, like I'm sick of the excuses for Josh Allen and saying, well, this is an issue, this is an issue. Make it work. You know,
Yeah.
that's what star players should do. They should make it work, and we have not seen Josh Allen make it work come playoff time.
Yeah, and credit to the Broncos O line, by the way. I think Bo Nix was only pressured like on 20% of his dropbacks, which I mean, and this will be a part of the conversation we have here in a second about how this team is built. But like guys like Bosa and them, like they weren't able to do enough to get after Bo Nix in general. But he was also getting the ball out quick, and then on deep passes, he was like 3 of 4 on deep passes. And if for 2 of those were for touchdowns, like deep pass touchdowns, but then there was also the deep passes that ended up with the pass interference call. So there's a level of fearlessness that you need when you're a playoff riser, right? You just have to block things out and trust in like your ability and the play call, like all of that, like top down. And Bo Nix and Sean Payton seem to be on a level where it's like, okay, like I'm just gonna trust you. We're gonna make these throws. And this is stuff like we were very critical of Bo Nix coming into the season and at times throughout this regular season. But one of the things we were talking about was like like especially last season, it was a lot of like plays near the line of scrimmage. It was like quick passes. It wasn't a lot of stuff where like you were really trusting him to throw it deep or into these like tighter windows, even though he could do that like in the short field. But like when it was like deeper stuff, you were worried about Bo Nix and his arm and whether or not he could actually make those throws. Not that he doesn't have the power, but just that he wouldn't have the consistency when it came to the accuracy. But then we've seen this evolution of him where it's like, yeah, every once in a while there's going to be a spray and he'll miss a deep pass. But the willingness to do all of this, even in these big moments like this in a game, shows a lot to me. That Bo Nix is like you need that aggressive factor in you.
Yeah, like
Right.
and I think part of that came from like the fact, and this last thing I'll say about it is that the fact that like coming out of college, he was an older quarterback, which was the biggest knock on him. It's like, well, he's already should be ready for these moments. But I still think no matter how old you are, there's still some adjusting to it. But
Do you on the older quarterback thing? Because I think we are. I think we're already kind of seeing it, but a shift in how we're evaluating quarterbacks that come out of college with or without experience. Because you always want to go for like the high talent, like high floor, like raw talent kind of guys, right? There's always, and this is a conversation we have a lot with like edge rushers coming out of college, like production versus traits. And I think we're going to start to see a little bit of shift like that when it comes to quarterbacks as well. Because I mean, look at guys like Mendoza, or who's going to be coming out here, or look at a guy like Bo Nix, who had all that experience, and it was a knock on him, but now he's leading it. He just led a team to the conference championship, won't be able to play in it, but he led a team there. And then you have guys like Tyler Shuck, the rookie from this year, who one of the knocks on him, why he was, it was the injury stuff, but also he was old. But now he looks like the Saints are saying like they've already said like he is our starting quarterback next year. So I think and then on the other side you have cases like Trubisky, Trey Lance, Anthony Richardson, guys who didn't have a lot of experience in college, barely. Like there's always like that 500 snap count people look at. And if you're near or below that, that's now going to be a red flag.
yeah, I think you mentioned and it's a big talking point, especially as we get to draft season. I think like from my opinion, is that you can rely on athletic traits for a defensive end, because like I do think the actual like your athleticism matters more over production. There's like and you'll see that translate to the NFL level, but quarterbacks are very different. And I agree with you to some degree, and especially teams are risking high draft picks on an Anthony Richardson, a Mitch Trubisky, and seeing these things aren't panning out, and you start to think, all right, like we need to be safer with these type of picks, and saying, well, this guy doesn't have enough like time really starting. And I think that's why we saw potentially a player like Dante Moore, decide to go back to Oregon for another year and say, well, have I really had enough time starting where teams are he also avoiding the Jets probably, but like they'll be waiting for him next year. Don't worry.
Hey, two birds, one stone, I guess.
But yeah, like it's a thing where it's like, all right, you're gonna be a knock. It's gonna be a knock, and especially in the age of NIL, where it's like you could be making a lot more money and you have to sign contracts, there now. Like I'm getting alerts being like, oh, he signed this contract. I'm like, sign a contract. You mean go back to school? Like, but yeah, like it's going to be a continued evaluation of like, all right, like how are we going to view, really college athletes and continuing to view the productivity because, once it goes from quarterback, it's still like, all right, like what else, positions do we need to be safer with? Everyone's trying to get an edge over each other. And you see that like teams are going to be, I don't want to say like less aggressive because you'll still see teams that will slide and be like, this is our guy. We want him, we value this, but it'll cancel out. But I do agree with you that I think teams will start to be safer at the quarterback position.
Yeah. Real quick before we move on to some of the stuff that happened after the game, did you? Oh, I didn't hear your full
Yeah,
take on the interception.
I agree with you that it was an interception. And
Okay.
okay, so I was like on the fence because like it looked weird because I typically understand it. And the one clip that I've seen, or the still shot that I've seen going around is the ball in like Cook's hands and he's on the ground. But if you and they explained it really well in the broadcast, and everyone was like, "Oh, we didn't get an explanation." I'm like, "Yes, you did." Like they literally said it like on the broadcast that like he did not like once you hit the ground, you have to you have to maintain,
You have to survive the ground.
yeah, survive the ground. He did not survive the ball through the ground because the ball is still technically in the other guy's hands. So
And it was bouncing off of his chest.
yes, and that's where I was like, oh, like once they explained it, I was like, I can see why some people are going to be upset, but logistically, it's right. Like that is like technically, it's following the rules, like of what it looks like, and while it may look weird, it is true. Like that is like I feel like it is. It's just true. I looked at that and I was like, wow, like damn, you learned something new. Okay, cool. It works.
Look, the like, is it a catch or not a catch thing is forever going to be an argument in the NFL every year. It sounds like there's going to be a moment like this. But this was, I hated the conversation that came out of this because of how big of a moment it was. But to be honest, it was a great play by McMillan, the DB, who we've talked about before in the season as being like, there was a point in the season where the Broncos were saying like McMillan was just kind of like a placeholder until the rookie that they drafted. But McMillan earned and has kept his spot on this team. He's played exceptionally well for them. And I mean, you need slot guys like that in the NFL to perform well on defense. And he made a fantastic play. Like Brandon Cooks is going down. He's not able to control the ball. McMillan's got his hands underneath it at the same time. Like they both have their hands underneath it at the same time, just on different ends. And one came up with it, the other didn't. And for Brandon Cooks, at the moment he was hitting the ground, the ball was kind of like bouncing off, right? It wasn't like fully secured. And so if you're the one that comes up with the ball in that situation, that's your ball in my mind. And it's like, dude, if you're a receiver, your main thing, catch the ball and keep it, right? That ball needs to end up in your hands. You can't just, oh, I touched the ball, my elbow hit the ground, so that's a catch. Like, you need to secure that bitch and, like, actually complete the play. I don't understand why this was such a controversial thing. I understand Bills fans. I can understand why they're upset about it, right? Because it's, it's seen as close. It's like, it's broadcasted as close, even though it really shouldn't have been. The media, like, there's, one side or the other. This was not a catch, and it was an interception. And it shouldn't have. It's another one of the things with the Bills. I can't believe how much we're going to have to talk about the Bills and how annoying and controversial they have after this game. But it was just like, shut up. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, the call was made, and it was also the right call.
Yeah. I think the past couple of days have really ruined my thoughts on the Bills franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
And at first it was like, all right, like, I honestly, like, I wouldn't say I was shocked when I saw McDermott was fired, but I was like, really, like, I get it, like the success, and he has been able to get over the hump, but like, and I was like, what did they really helped with? Like, I was like, Keon Coleman didn't really work out the way you thought he would, but like at the same time, it's like, like a lot of it does come down to like we mentioned Josh Allen struggling this game. I was like, that's what I look at and say like, hey, like that was really the reason they lost, like. And the fact that like the owner came out and he said a lot of things press conference wise, and one of the things he said was like, well, that final Broncos Bills game was the breaking point for him, and I was like, that was the breaking point for you, like that was what, like I was like, I don't know if that's worth getting a guy fired, like especially when you can sum this down to, hey, like dumb turnovers, like whatever you call it with the. It was clearly like once again this ownership for them to come out and say, well, it's a catch, he caught it. It says a lot, and to be like, hey, like, especially when you get explanation constantly, you've seen the NFL come out and say we still stand by this decision. It was correct, And for you to then try to say like saltily like, oh, like no, it's wrong, like we were robbed and all this stuff, like it's so like it's such a childlike move to come out and be like, no, like we deserve to win, like we should have gotten this, and then we're gonna fire our coach because it didn't work,
and promote your GM.
Yes, who has gotten you in this position in the first place, where like you could say like, hey, there's a reason you're struggling to bring in receiver talent, like because your GM isn't doing enough for this. Like it's disappointing to say the least, and and then we get to the Keon Coleman stuff.
Yeah.
And okay, so Keon Coleman, we know, has just been a divisive figure for them all this season, and it's weird because it felt like it relatively came out of nowhere, and then it's built up to be a consistent issue. Because if you were looking at the start of their season, he was clearly in the plans and was productive for them from week one, and then it became, oh, his numbers are dropping. Yes, there were some drop issues. I'm not saying he's really turned into what we would expect, or really went against the drop issues. He hasn't performed the way you would have hoped from a draft pick of his caliber. But at the same time, I don't look at this and say like he should have been benched, especially considering what you spent to get him. Like this is something that I think you knew what you were getting. You have to be patient with these type of things. And I think there's a lack of patience, and we talked about this before, a lack of patience between all sports to say, like, let's grow and develop this player. Let's see how he grows and develops into this. And instead being like, go out there and perform. You're on a playoff caliber team. Go be Josh Allen's number one guy. And that is so unrealistic for a second-year player. And I've said this from the start of the season where, yes, I think we saw flashes of that, but you also have to still understand that there are going to be lows with a player like this. And you knew this drafting him, and you still decided to go through with it. And then for you to come out and then pin it on the coach who you just fired, which obviously it makes sense. You're trying to kind of, say, well, that's the past regime. Like we're throwing all that with him. Everything that went wrong was the past regime's fault. Probably blaming McDermott for not being, more aggressive with the refs to try to reverse the interception or whatever. Like all of it to throw it on McDermott is irresponsible. And once again, like childish, like to say like, oh, like we're going to put this all on our former coach, who's been there for you for years and has given so much to the organization, all because of one game. And then to throw the Keon Coleman stuff, who's still on your roster, and to say like, well, like I didn't want to pick him. It was really just a McDermott thing, and we wanted nothing to do with it is insane.
Yeah, to say that about a player currently still on your roster going into next season, to say like, yeah, we actually didn't want him and that was on the coach who we just fired, is nuts. And it's especially nuts to say that when you're caught on 4K in documentary style, like I think like it was like Hard Knocks, where they were saying like, oh, the GM is on video saying, I want Keon Coleman. We're actually glad that his 4.5 or his 4.40 time was a bit lower in like the 4.5 area, because that means it'll be easier for us to draft him when he falls to us because we really believe in and want this guy. Like, I don't understand how you can say all this stuff when there's receipts. Like, we saw you. Like, we can see you saying this stuff that you're now saying is different. Was like back then in that moment during that whole draft process, you were very in and about drafting this guy. And then now afterwards, when things don't work out, you're going to say that wasn't you, even though we have you on video saying it was you. You're going to try and blame it on the coach who you just fired. It's so unbelievably just stupid, and it's such a bad look for the Bills. But then the owner completely backing up the GM in Brandon Beane and saying like, oh no, like, yeah, I fully believe in him. They promote him. It's clearly just seems like he's just really cool with the owner, and that like he's just fully bought in with whatever he's selling him, and they're going to believe in it. And it seems a little bit too emotional too. Like, there's times where we talk about the NFL where it's like, oh, it's a business, and we kind of make that seem like it's a bad thing. And at times it is. It's a bad thing. It can be a little heartless when players get cut and traded. Like, certain things happen, right? Like, look at Baker Mayfield and how he still has beef with the Browns. But at the same time, there's also an emotional part of it where like you have to have more like business aspect to it. And like you heard the owner talking about like the whole thing with like all the reports coming about like the locker room after the Bills lost, from every beat reporter, from everyone who covers the Bills locally, from people who work national, like everyone that was in that locker room media wise described the locker room as one of the most despondent and sad and like depressing locker rooms you will ever be in your life. Which look, this was a devastating loss for the Bills, and they clearly felt it like top down. Like nobody was like nobody was gonna be in a good mood in general. But
Nobody's
it
gonna
was
walk away
like
from that and say like, "Well, we had a good season, y'all." Like,
yeah, like there was no one in
take
Josh Allen was crying for like apparently Josh Allen was crying like immediately like in his locker. The owner went up and said like he's like, oh, I went up to Josh Allen after the game and he was crying and I tried to talk to him. He didn't even acknowledge me. He just kept crying and he was saying it was his fault and he let his team down. And apparently that really affected the owner. And that part of what was part of what ended the decision of him like firing the coach because he feels so bad for. And it's like, dude, in that moment, you should just be as an owner, just be like, hey guys, like, good season, we'll figure it out. But like in that moment, you just need to be thinking about like that moment and then it just everything from that loss on, like it's still lingering for them. They're so devastated by it that now they're making these and like I agree with you. It probably was time to move on from McDermott. Like he did a lot for this franchise. He should be like in the Ring of Honor one day for some of the stuff he did for this. I think about when they first went to the playoffs and they had to rely on Tyrod Taylor and the Ravens winning a game for them, and they're all in that locker room watching. Like that was such a big moment for this franchise. And then you get Josh Allen and you start ascending. You have all these big moments. That all happened under Sean McDermott. So for him to have this unceremonious exit is just it sucks. Like it genuinely. And I don't even really care about the Bills franchise like that. But now I definitely don't care about the Bills franchise. If this is how they're going to treat their staff and their players, it's just a bad look for your franchise, man. And it keeps going. They keep complaining and they keep saying stuff and they keep saying wrong things that we have receipts to show that how they are wrong. It's like they're digging they're making everything worse. It was already bad that you lost. Now you're just making things worse and kind of like digging a different hole. It's just like I don't understand how they've gone about any of this, and it's been awful.
yeah. So okay, so we talked about a lot, and this will be the last thing because we need to transition away from
Yeah,
the game
yeah,
and everything. But once again, like these were all the quotes that have come out from Bills owner Terry Pagula. First, it was the Keon Coleman one, and it says, "Can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon." End quote. And then there's a quote about firing Sean McDermott, and he said, "Quote: My decision was based on the game in Denver." Unquote. And then tied to this was, does anyone know what the numbers 5, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 6 represent? And he said that's our seeding over the last 7 years in the playoffs. And then this is once again speaking about Sean McDermott, and he said it's impossible to have these or those kind of results without a good roster. Which was one of the things that was the issue that we had first heard when Sean McDermott first got fired. Where I have it right here. Yeah, during a meeting 5 weeks ago between Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and Terry Pagula, McDermott pointed out flaws on the roster that were preventing the team from reaching the next level. Beane and Pagula were unhappy with the assessment, and that was from Vic Carucci, who reported that. And to what degree would you why would you want your coach to be like, yeah, I think our rosters are good enough when it clearly isn't? Like these are the type of things where it's like you want a leader to say, hey, we need more help. We need to address these positions. These are an issue. We have aging DBs, and yes, I know a receiving core is an issue, but we can't continue to sustain the success of getting Tre'Davious White to have reliving these good years. That isn't sustainable. Like we need receivers in our room, but yes, DBs, like there are other holes on this roster. For him to say that, like unless he was like ripping them to shreds, which I doubt you would do that to your owner and GM, like it's different. But the one thing that I will agree with that, and not even agree with, but slightly say I can see where he's coming from, Terry Pagula. He said, I felt like we hit the proverbial playoff wall. And to be honest, I think that's the only thing that should have been said is be like, hey, we appreciate his time. He's done everything he could, but it was time for a new change. And because you can literally say, hey, Ravens did it, Steelers did it. Obviously, we're not the same degree with them, but McDermott's been here for 7 years, 7, 8 years.
9 years.
Even further than that. Like we value his contributions. We feel like we can't get over the hump. Wish him the best. That's all you should have said. For them to drag it out and to still be going, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, and like we keep saying last thing, but to promote a GM who is in charge of building this roster, right, is insane. Then to then blame, like say like, oh well, the coach, like this roster wasn't good enough. I'm sorry, but like this GM and this franchise in its current iteration has had a hard time. Anytime they've picked early in the draft, they have some sort of inability to find the talent that they need, and their assessments on all these players and their uses and how to use them and how they fit in your team have, for the most part, just been completely wrong. Right? Like Ed Oliver is a good example of like a good part of their draft, and they'll find some guys in the middle parts of the draft, like like a Benford or whoever else, but for anytime you're picking in like those first rounds, it's like you're not able to find the talent that you need, and that's not all on the coach. Like that's on like yeah, the coach has to coach these guys up, right? But at the same time, if you're giving him players like Kyrie Elam, who your front office and your GM and all that were super hyped up about, putting about videos of him, oh, he came into our meeting at the combine with notes, and he's so well prepared and smart, and we believe in his athletic abilities. He's not even playing for you anymore, and that felt like it was yesterday. That was like 2 years ago. He's on the Cowboys now, who had one of the worst pass defenses, the worst pass defense in the NFL. Those are the type of players that you have been drafting. So I don't understand how, again, you're going to promote a guy who's making those decisions and fire the guy who is generally regarded around the league as a good head coach. I can see other angles, right? Like just like you said, we got to the like there were other ways for you to go about this to explain what your reasoning was for firing him, and you just went about it the complete worst way to do it. Now, having said all that, there probably will be some people lining up to coach your team because of Josh Allen, who seems like he's actually running that franchise. It seems like everything is like he's their darling, he's their golden boy, and he can do no wrong. And like if you hurt him, or it seems like everyone's holding him back, he's not holding us back. That seems to be the owner and the GM's like mindset with all this, and I think that could be why they just I don't know if they're ever going to have the postseason success they want if they keep having the same mentality and keep putting themselves further and further in a hole because of their ineptitude.
All right. Last this, and it's just to agree with you, but I think something that you mentioned is the fact that like you talk about the owner and like him seeing Josh Allen, and I think that right there to me, I think that was when a decision was made, and saying and sticking with the he's our golden boy thing, to see him crying, to see him that emotional as an owner, and to say like we need to protect this asset. I think we need to make a decision to show that we still trust him and that he isn't giving up on us and saying I don't think I could win here. And I think it was I don't want to say I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. Yes, I agree with him to some degree with when we talked about this. You hit a wall, you feel you can't get over that hump. Like AFC Championship, you lose to the Chiefs. Like there's constantly all excuses, and every year is something new. Like I understand that, but I think it came down to like you see your star quarterback, you see your franchise, you see everything that you want to maintain. You see him emotional. You say we need to make a knee-jerk reaction so that he can see that we are doing things to support him and that he isn't leaving us. And yes, I understand Josh Allen, MVP, perennial MVP candidate every year for the next 5 years probably. But I disagree with the fact that they were able to do this so quickly and think that like it was justified to do everything else after.
Yeah, all like right. Some teams mid-season trade for Jacoby Myers and turn their wide receiver room around. Other teams like the Bills trade for players on their way out the league, like Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks. Anyways, let's move on to the Niners and the Seahawks, the second game that happened on Saturday, and a very one-sided, eventful kind of game. This game felt like, it was over in the first 10, 13 seconds. The kick return, so this game starts with a Rashid Shaheed kick return for a touchdown, and it was electric, it was amazing, it was stunning, and that was enough points for them to win the game right there. And they made sure to tell the Niners that in social media and so other players. They were like, we scored more plays than you in the first we scored more points than you in the first 10 seconds than you did all game, which is a devastating way to talk shit to another team. I mean, that is crazy. You won the game in the first 10 seconds and your defense just went out there and dominated. That's what this game was, man. Like, the Seahawks offense did enough. You come into this game with Sam Darnold saying, he's got the hurt oblique. You weren't even sure he was going to play this game. There were talks about like Drew Lock having to play.
Insane. There were reports that it came out that literally the day before they played Sunday. So, or did they played Saturday night?
I forget, honestly.
Whatever it was. There were reports that he hadn't thrown the ball since Thursday, and it was a couple of days from then. And I was like, Thursday? And they were like, yeah, we're going to see how he does in warm-ups today. And I was like, what? Like, yeah. And he was, I think, a crucial part of all of this, like hinging on that. But the one thing that, like, there's an easy way to take Sam Darnold out of all of this is scoring fast and early. Because, and this is a crucial part of all this that I think is like won them the game, literally. It's that atmosphere. Seattle is notoriously known, and they literally constructed their stadium to make life hell for opposing teams.
Beautiful
And
stadium, by the way, in a city.
I can only imagine.
Build your stadiums in cities.
Is that a shot at anybody else?
Yeah, the league.
The moment I saw, okay, I I was still trying to turn the game on, and then when I finally got it on, it was like showing the replays of like Shaheed in the end zone. I'm like, what did I miss? Like,
Yeah.
I'm seeing celebrations, and I was like, and I looked at that and I could hear the crowd even being energetic after the play had already happened, and like the Seattle kicked their field goal. And I was like, it is going to be impossible to try to like get back in this game. And it's literally crazy to say that after 20 seconds of a game, but that is what like. And we talked about this last week of like what the 49ers needed to do, and it wasn't just control the tempo of this game, but it was control the tempo of the atmosphere. Because if you're able to rely on Christian McCaffrey, able to run it and draw this game out, one, you keep the high powered offense away, and you're able to wear this defense down. Is it impossible to wear down the Seattle defense? Probably not impossible, but it's very hard to.
It's feeling impossible.
They're a team that we talked about all season. You can go 80 yards on them, and the last 20 yards would be damn near impossible to get past. So, but it's one of those things where it's like you have to play damn near perfect against a team like this. And to see an opening kickoff return, I was like, yeah, it's over from here, because there's no way, and this is, it's a credit to the 49ers that they've made it this far, with all the injuries they've had and everything. But I think after that touchdown, I was like, yeah, this game is unfortunately going to be what I expected. We're not going to get too many wrinkles. We're not going to see the 49ers go down there and take deep shots. Like Demarcus Robinson isn't going to have another 100-yard game. Like we're not going to see these crazy scenarios. It's going to be, all right, Seattle is going to dominate this game, control the tempo of this, and you're never going to get back into this game. And that's exactly what we saw, because Kenneth Walker ran the ball down the 49ers' throat. 19 carries, 116 yards, and three
touchdowns.
And guess what? Sam Darnold, 12 for 17, 124 yards, 1 touchdown. But guess what?
No turnovers.
0 fumbles, and he only took 2 sacks. Talk about winning playoff games. And if your defense is going to go out there and hold the opponent to just 6 points, guess what you need to do? Not turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over at any cost. Rely on your run game, which is what they did. When you're asked to throw the ball, be high percentage with it. Guess what? 12 for 17, high percentage. Did he only have 124 yards? Yes. I don't care, because they won the game and held their opponent to 6, and they scored 41.
And then on the flip side, you talk about the 49ers offense. You talked about how in the last game, Bo Nix was the one who led their team in rushing. Brock Purdy led his team in rushing this game, and you have Christian McCaffrey on your roster. So I don't listen. If Brock Purdy's walking away as the leading rusher, most times that's not going to go well, especially when your receivers are who they are for the Niners. It's just, oof, man. This defense was already coming in with a boatload of confidence, and then listen. And these teams don't like each other. They were definitely up and ready to go. The Seahawks, man, there's so many players on their defense. They're so good, and they're being led by a psychotic head coach who, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. He is, in my mind, the best defensive coordinator in football, and he's proving it by knocking out all these what are supposed to be. Listen, like we said, the Niners, with all their injuries that they have, this was the most likely outcome that was going to happen. Right, it was going to take a miracle to win this game, probably, but. Dude, the Seahawks defense it feels insurmountable at this point. With you have guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, who they signed in the offseason, who has been fantastic for them. Like at times, like in this game, he was like one of their better defenders. He's been getting sacks for them, fumbles, like he's turnovers like crazy. And then you have guys like Ernest Jones, their linebacker, who they traded for in the middle of last season, who has been fucking amazing for them. Got a pick in this game. But then you also have guys like Witherspoon and Eman Worry, and I'm about to name their entire defensive roster, but like
I'll just speak on DeMarcus Lawrence real quick, because to start this season, when he first signed with the left the Cowboys, signed with the Seahawks, he had said that he wanted to join a team that could compete for championships, and everyone laughed at him because yes, like you're leaving the Cowboys, like clearly that you're not going to win anything there, but people laughed at him because like you went to Seattle. and they were like, well, like, it's not like, yes, the Cowboys, we all know, like, we can all laugh at them and say they're not going to win anything, but like Seattle isn't going to win anything this year, and he's definitely had the last laugh as of right now. Obviously, he's, 2 games left, but I'll say this now, they're going to be a very tough out for any of the 3 remaining teams that they could, that they're going to play or could play against.
Can I read a DeMarcus Lawrence stat real quick from this game?
Go ahead.
And how he has to feel extremely vindicated with where he's at right now? He recorded 1 sack, 2 forced fumble, 3 QB hits, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 pass defense in this game against the 49ers. He becomes the second player in postseason since at least the 1999 season to put all of those together, basically. Yeah. I mean, he's doing crazy shit for them on a defense where he's not even like he's top 5 probably on this defense, but like there's an argument that he's not at the same time because of how talented this roster is on top of the great coaching that they have with it. It's just, I don't know, man. It's getting, and this is the team I was talking about, by the way, at the beginning of the show, where it's like you have that kick return in moments like that. That is such momentum, not in the game, but in the postseason, where it's like that team clearly believes that they are the best in the league and that they can win the Super Bowl. And I'm kind of right there with them. When you consistently have moments like this, you're making plays like that, everything's going right for you, all phases of football. This just feels like the team to beat right now in the playoffs.
Yeah. I really don't got much else to say about this game. That is about. Actually, I lied.
I want to shout out a few players before we move on.
One thing else, let's shout out players, and then I have one more thing to say about crying fan bases. The
49ers were sore losers.
And we'll get into it right now. The way that the 49ers fans, not 49ers fans, not just
I was gonna say they're players,
players especially, like you had Trent Williams come out, bringing up the injuries and stuff. And yes, once again, we've mentioned this, injuries are a big part. But for you to say, like, well, we'd beat them without, if we weren't injured. No, you wouldn't. Like, I don't care who you had out there. Like, these are injuries, and yes, you've overcome them. You've had great coaching. You've had great players. You had Christian McCaffrey healthy for a full season, and he's finally see what we're able to do. But he has been your entire team. Brandon Ayuk.
He had 450 snaps. By the way, Christian McCaffrey, he carried the ball touched the ball more than 450 times this season, including the playoffs. That is nuts for a guy who's coming off of injuries.
Yes. It's just not sustainable. And we'll see that, and we'll see what steps they take throughout the draft and the free agency to kind of fix that. But for all of this to happen, and even the way, like, not even before the game, like even during the game, you have like JSN catching headbutts randomly because and he's just like sitting there like, we're going on to the next round. I'm not about to fight and potentially miss a game. It's so like I think like before all this Bill stuff happened, I was gonna go on a rant about like, I think like this 49ers organization and mostly the locker room, like they're a bunch of dickheads. And I still stand by that. The Bills obviously took a little heat off of them because we've stopped talking about the 49ers and they're complaining to the media. But it is very easy to say, well, we would have been here if. And I'm tired of ifs. I'm tired of the 49ers ifs. I'm tired of the Justin Herbert ifs. I'm tired of the Josh Allen ifs.
Especially when we see teams who have injuries be able to go on and win, right?
Good teams, and they're saying this more and more, and I've seen this more, and people talk about this in soccer, and even hell in the NBA, is that sometimes you can have the most talent in the world, but it is all about staying healthy and especially getting to the stretch where you can get those players in the positions to win games.
It's getting to the point where every conspiracy theory I hear, every random outside like thought about how and why this team is so injured every year, I'm starting to just believe everything I see because it's got to be otherworldly at this point. I was talking about this with my roommate during the game because they were just getting devastated. And Jake Tonjes got hurt in this game too. Their backup tight end who had to be in as their starter because George Kittle got hurt the last playoff game. Jake Tonjes was their leading receiver in this game, and he got hurt. He didn't even play the whole game. So it's like every theory I see now, I'm like, why are they always so injured? It feels like they're cursed because, I mean, if you look at since 10 years ago, they're for the most part in top 5 of most injured teams in the NFL every season. The one season where they weren't top 5, they were 9th of all the teams for being most injured. So they're still top 10 most injured team in the league. They went to the Super Bowl and lost. But even then, it's this team is so devastatingly injured, it feels like, every year. And it's hard to sustain and move on and have success in the league when that happens. Now, can you go on and win it? Yes. But at the same time, to lose a game like this, be such sore losers and talk about like, well, we beat the Eagles last week and, that was a big for us. And then now we're coming to this and of course we weren't going to win. We didn't have our players. Don't shit on your team because that's shitting on the guys who have to step up in that place, right? Like, Jawan Jennings is out there trying. Like, Jake Tonjes was playing his ass off before he got hurt. You weren't really playing Brian Robinson for whatever reason. Jordan James was getting more touches than his. So, as good as the coaching staff was, they didn't have the biggest arsenal, but they're still great coaches. But look, man, sometimes you just run into a juggernaut like the Seahawks, and it is what it is. But and the more you're a sore loser, the more I'm happy when I see the Seahawks social media team going at you and your fan base because I'm like, yeah, you know what? They deserve it. They were sore losers. They were shitty on the way out, so screw it. I don't know. But like real quick with the Seahawks, man. Yeah, Zach Charbonnet goes out with an injury, so he'll be out, like you said, the rest of the season. But Kenneth Walker, as you said, great game from him. But Cooper Kupp, dude, he has some very clutch throws in here. It seems like anytime they were like, we need to move the chains, let's just hit Cooper Kupp on an outside route and get like move the chains here real quick. Like JSN didn't even really have to do that much. He got the touchdown, but he only had 4 targets in this game, man. Like we saw a random Jake Bobo sighting where he had 1 catch in this game, and like he didn't really catch anything at all throughout the regular season. I don't know, man. Like the Seahawks team, it's led by their defense, but the offense is also able to like turn it up and get the plays they need when they need. It makes them an interesting Super Bowl contender, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on because I'm sure we can say some more. But let's move on to the Texans and Patriots game, the first day of Sunday. And yeah, okay, so we just got done denigrating. I don't know what shitting on. Like, what are you going to talk about? Josh Allen and the Bills. The Texans also, listen, CJ Stroud also had a terrible game. And we were texting throughout this game talking about, like, man, he has no time to throw the ball at all. The O-line was getting crushed. The Patriots defense played great this game. And we talked about before this game how we thought, like, this was a defensive matchup, right? Not just with the coaches and everything like that, but just the personnel, the strengths of these teams. Yes, Drake May is having an MVP-type season, but it was going to be the defenses that were going to be like the main factor when it came to this game. And it kind of was because CJ Stroud ended up throwing 4 interceptions in the first half of this game. In fact, all of his touchdowns and interceptions came in the first half. That was 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions in 2 quarters of play in an NFL postseason game. So not great for CJ Stroud. And you can make excuses where you say, like, look, he's got one of the worst O-lines in the league. That's been proven throughout the entire season. Like, this O-line is god-awful. But they went on this winning streak, and they were able to find ways to move the ball on offense enough, and their defense can carry them at times and win them games. And we saw them the last play. Like, they were able to get you a couple touchdowns and put you in good field position and whatnot. But CJ Stroud and the offense just weren't able to take advantage of it. They couldn't run the ball at all. I think Woody Marks had, I had it written down here, like 19 yards or something like that. I don't know. He had like nothing. They weren't able to run the ball at all. So it was all on CJ Stroud to make plays. And at the moment it was to snap the ball, even if the protection was good, which was kind of rare, he just panicked, man. Like, it was like the pressure was there even if it wasn't there. That's how he was reacting to it. And he just kept making bad throw. This was the most tight window throws he's ever thrown in a game. Yeah. And they were all bad throws. Like, there was no reason for him to even try to make some of those throws. He wasn't taking some of the easy stuff that was available to him. It was trying to make plays when they weren't there, turn the ball over, and putting the Patriots in good spots to win this game and take full advantage of it, which they did.
So, Marks had 14 carries for 17 yards.
Oof, I gave him 2 extra yards.
Nick
He
Chubb,
still wasn't at 20.
4 carries, 14 yards. And then CJ Stroud there, 2 carries for 11 yards. I'll say this sorry about saying this. Yes, CJ Stroud didn't play well. But, and this is what, and people will say, well, what's the difference between Josh Allen's interceptions and CJ Stroud's turnovers as well? And all I'll say is that Josh Allen still had enough support where at the end of the game, he can make a difference to try to win this game. Like, he had great run support from James Cook. His receivers had showed up to, especially considering all the talk about, there's no number 1 receiver on this, but you had Khalil Shakir show up. You had Dalton Kincaid show up. They had that going well for you. What did CJ Stroud have well going for him? And what I will say is I think the rookie Higgins had a great showing. And I mentioned that beforehand, saying that I think one of the rookies, either him or Noel, needed to kind of take that next step to really cement himself. And I think Higgins had a great game, 6 catches, 59 yards. But it just, CJ Stroud didn't have enough time. And speaking of bad offensive lines, PFF has ranked all the offensive lines at the end of the season, regular season, and the Texans were ranked the 27th worst. And the only teams that were worse than them were the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Browns, and the Raiders. Which four of those teams didn't make the playoffs, and the Chargers got bounced because obviously they're bottom five, and they let Justin Herbert get jumped. But I still think, and once again speaking about the media, the media response and how critical they were about CJ Stroud was like innately frustrating.
Yep, because they were way harder on him than they were Josh Allen.
And look, I understand CJ Stroud hasn't been what we've seen from his rookie year, but
it's been bad.
I think it's because, it's a GM thing of like getting support for him, because I think after they knew the offensive line was bad his rookie year, and instead of saying let's invest, and yes, they like we can invest a couple first round pick in it, and they got Irsay with that, but it'll be good. It'll like he was able to manage his rookie year, it will be sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable, and I think now they're realizing that, and I saw a lot of people during this game saying, "Well, put Davis Mills in." Like Davis Mills was good when C.J. Stroud, was hurt, and needed to step up. But and I think this is what really kind of like I really like. This was the one we're shitting a lot on bad media presence and stuff, but the one that stood out to me that I really liked, and it was something that Ryan Clark was like talking about at halftime. He was really passionate about it, and speaking directly to C.J. Stroud and saying like, "Look, he is a top 3 pick that you spent for them. Yes, he needs to overcome this. He needs to figure this out. He needs to just And he said, like, I think it was like somebody needs to like look at him in the eyes and say like, hey, are you okay? Do you know where you are right now? Like, do you have like faith in you to go out there and win this game for us? Like, go and be the person that we spent the number 2 overall pick on, and go be that person. Like, you are a high draft pick for a reason." And I was like, I like that. We didn't see that from C.J. Stroud in the second half, but I was like, all right, like I still have faith in him. I still have faith that he can be that player. And I know you may disagree, but
listen,
I think it is at least another season's worth. And I'm still on the fence that I believe people should all like, and especially like a player that you've seen potentially, you've seen the highs, or at least the relative highs, should always be given another chance to be able to get there. Like Anthony Richardson, for example, I don't know where the highs are, but I can say I've seen an impressive rookie season from C.J. Stroud. I've seen him be able to, in moments where he's given time and given the support, be able to do things well. So that's why I'm lobbying for another year for him. But there was one thing in particular, and it was Troy Aikman who had came out and was like speaking about C.J. Stroud stuff, and I'll read off his quote, and he said, "C.J. Stroud has been chasing his rookie success for the last 2 years. He's not been the same player. We've not seen the development from him. There's a reason for that, and it has to be addressed." And I was like, all right, like, I understand that. I still think that this is too harsh for a guy that, like, considering where he was his rookie year and the situation that they put him in since. Yes, you haven't seen the superstar development, but at the same time, it's like, and this is the weird part of this, is that you look at his draft class, and hell, number 1 pick right above him, Bryce Young, had to have been benched last season at this point in time. And then is taking them to the playoffs, but he played inconsistent. At what point do you say like this person like deserves a chance? Like the Bryce Young comparison, I think the more and more I thought about this, the more confusing it got, and I was like, we're giving Bryce Young another year as well, because he took the Panthers to the playoffs, and yes, they had a great impressive showing. C.J. Stroud, once again, the defense really kind of took them to the playoffs this time, but C.J. Stroud struggled, and I was like, all right, like I think this should be another year of getting support, and especially considering this isn't a good draft class for QBs anyway, getting support and saying, hey, CJ, go out there and be this number 2 overall pick that we think you can be, and if not, we're gonna find a new guy next year. And I think that's fair to say for him, at least for another year, especially because like people say, oh, you're gonna ruin this defense. This defense is young, and I think that's the scary part about all this. Like Will Anderson Jr., they're talking about contract extensions for this man. Get ready to break the bank. Like you might as well like Houston. They got plenty of money down in Texas, so it shouldn't be an issue. But be ready to pay that man whatever he wants, and he deserves it. So all this is to end the CJ Stroud stuff. I'll just say like I think he deserves another year.
I'm like halfway there with you. Like I do think you give him another year and you see if you can actually find a way to protect him and like fix some things. But part of the things that need to be fixed are with him as well and how he plays and his decision making on the field because it has gotten worse. Like it wasn't great during the regular season, and then he got hurt. You know, Davis Mills comes in, and then they're able to like take that momentum to go to the playoffs. But like CJ Stroud did not have a great regular season either. It wasn't like this was something that was like, well, where did this come from? Like he was so good, and like it was bad all year. And I do think there are things to address. Like you said, we've seen the highs. We've seen him be able to make these like crazy throws and throw, make the correct aggressive throws while also still protecting the ball. And he had a connection with Nico Collins and Tank Dell when he was healthy. It was just, I still think there's things like. It's a little bit of both, right? Like the front office and the coaching and all that could do more to help him out, but at the same time, CJ Stroud has been helping himself out. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I agree with you. Like I'm not sitting here saying like, okay, they need to replace him now. I just think there needs to be some hard conversations within that building with CJ Stroud, and they need to make sure that they're all on the same page going forward, and that like, look, we're going to be dedicated to protecting you, but you also need to be better with that when you do have a clean pocket because at times when the O line did kind of get a little bit better and that we were kind of trying to scheme you better options and give you quicker throws, you weren't taking them. You were still making bad decisions. So I do think it's a little bit of both. But we should talk more about the winners of this game being the New England Patriots. Drake May can listen, man. I'm not gonna say he had like a great game, but like he had a really good game. He made the plays when needed. He got a few touchdowns, right? You got the throw to Kayshon Boutte was amazing. I'll say that. Like it was against Stingley, one-handed like touchdown throw, like that was fantastic. That was a great throw like from Drake May there. And like I said, they did enough to win this game, right? He was under attack the entire game. That's what was impressive to me with Drake May. This defense was after him, man. Like we clearly saw like it's between the Seahawks or the Texans, like who the best defense in the NFL was this year, and you can see why when you watch this weekend. But I mean, you do have to give credit for Drake May being this young, sticking it through, making the plays when they were there, and continuing to lead this team on offense, man. Like they were to get some of the run game going, but he's making the throws when they're there. And I don't know, man. Like you can see why this was a big test for him. We talked about it. This was his biggest test for the year. This is the toughest defense he's going to go against unless he makes it to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, right? Then you can see that again. But we talked about how throughout the regular season they weren't playing a lot of like great teams. They had an easier schedule with the defenses they were playing against, and they were taking full advantage of that, which is good. That's what you're supposed to do. So then it was, okay, when you get to the playoffs and you're playing these higher level defenses, how are you going to be? And he's performed well enough for them to win, man. And the defense was fantastic in this game, too. K'Lavon Chaisson was like a throwaway guy with the Jaguars. Like, they full well got rid of him thinking, like, this guy is going to be like a rotational piece somewhere. He led the team in pressures this game. It has been really kind of an underrated player for the Patriots on defense all year. But then you still have guys like Marcus Jones, one of their leaders on defense, a slot guy making plays for you, got to pick in this game. Then, Christian Gonzalez is able to do what he does, contesting every throw that's like comes his way, it feels like. So, I don't know. And then Milton Williams, like one of our old favorites from the Eagles, is just such a stalwart presence for them right there in the middle of the defensive line. So, you have to give credit for like this wasn't a game where it's like, oh, the Texans gave it to them. Like the Patriots, like they won this game like outright, and the Texans just couldn't handle whatever was thrown their way.
Yeah, the moment that we saw that Kayshon Boutte touchdown, I was like, "This, it's too much." Like
Yeah.
and I think they like even the commentator said it, where it was like, we're still a lot of fourth quarter left to play. I think that might be the dagger right there, and I agree because I was like, all right, like CJ Stroud has struggled, and I think a lot of credit should go to the Patriots defense as well because we talked about CJ's getting jumped, but like that doesn't happen if you mentioned the good defensive line pressure. Chase Hall was everywhere, Milton Williams was everywhere. And then obviously the DBs taking advantage of these interceptions. Like it's very easy to say, oh, like CJ Stroud threw these interceptions. It's another thing to give credit to defensive DBs and safeties for being in the right places to get these interceptions. So they deserve credit as well. With that being said, and maybe this is where I'm being cautious. I still think, considering all the interceptions, and yes, like there should be something said that you're still going with the Texans defense. with this all being said, I still think that this game should have been over a lot sooner.
Yes, I agree
And
with that. I do think that Drake, especially the first three quarters, they weren't taking enough advantage of the field position they were getting off of the turnovers.
and that is what makes me worried when they play against a team like the Broncos, who like are yes, like they're not as relentless as the Texans, but they are. It's 1, 2, and 3 between them, Seattle and Houston.
I'm telling you right now, Benito is probably licking his chops thinking about going against Will Campbell because Will Campbell against Will Anderson was terrible for
Yes,
Will Campbell. Like
and
it at times looked like Will Anderson was just running straight to Drake May with no
the,
resistance.
yeah, and I think there's a combination of like this is a conversation we'll save when we actually talk about previewing this Patriots matchup. But I just look at this and say like I need to see that Drake May could have at least closed this game out a little bit sooner. That's my only knock with this. But playing against a Broncos team, I think it is mightily important.
100%. Yeah, but now it kind of, dude. This is where it sucks that like like you said, we're talking about this in a preview, but it's like it would have been great to see Bo Nix be healthy
And that's why we'll save it. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, shout out to the Patriots, man, and Mike Vrabel, man. Like he's such a good coach, man. I still don't understand why the Titans got rid of him, but yeah, man. Shout out to him leading this team. We talked about how the mentality that him and D'Amico Ryans both bring to their teams, and I think they both came through in this game. It was just the Patriots just had more and were able to protect the ball better, and here we are. Now they're going to the conference championship in Drake May's second year.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on. We're going to be talking about real quick. We just got done reviewing everything. Or wait, no, I'm sorry. I was about to skip a whole last game. My fault. Rams Bears. Yeah, God. Okay. Listen, just more turnovers. This is what's going to piss me off. This weekend was so turnover heavy and such sloppy play. It felt like from like there was at least one team every game where we were like, what the hell is happening here? And I've talked about specifically about like Caleb Williams and like how good I think he is and how he can be. I've always been worried about with him, not always, but like what has worried me at times is the consistency, right? We talk about like there's plays out there that he can make that I like feels like only him and maybe two other people in the league can make, right? Like some of the throws and the plays he makes, they're just insane. I mean, think about how this game went to overtime. There's only so many players in this league that can make a play like that. But then at the same time, it's all the little things in between the big plays, right? Where it's like the reason you have to make these big plays is because you're not able to move down the field because you're not completing the throws or you're turning it over or you're making weird decisions with the ball, things like that. But then at the same time, it kind of sucks when your receivers also stop running their routes and then you throw an interception because you think your receiver is going to be in a spot, but then they're not. So looking at you, DJ Moore. So it was a tough game for him, but I mean, the Rams, Stafford is just nails at all times. He was still making no look passes in this game when it was like clutch time. I mean, because look, the Rams win this game, right? I should have started with that. The Rams won this game 20-17. The game goes to overtime because of some heroics from Caleb Williams. But yeah, Matthew Stafford is just a pillar of consistency, man. He's such a good, like, such a great quarterback. I was gonna say good, but like he's such a great quarterback. And like the Bears tried on defense to go after him, and they were blitzing the hell out of him at times, sending like 7 guys at a time. And Matthew Stafford, he had to get the ball out quick, and I think he did that well this game. But at the same time, when he had the shots to take, he was able to take them and make them. It's always so fun to see how the Rams like shift their offense like for each team that they play against. Like what is Sean McVay going to scheme up for this team specifically, right? And for this game, it felt like they went lighter, right? There were less tight ends on the field. They were using less heavy personnel. It felt like everything was just spread out a little bit more, and they were just trying to be quicker. And I think that was the correct move to go against this Bears defense. And in the end, the Rams win in a close one because the Bears almost had another cardiac win. But man, it was just. I was also really impressed with the Rams defense in this game because we talked about a lot like what our worry was with the Rams on their defense all year has been like the boundary players, right? Like what we've talked glowingly of their safeties before, like Cam Curl and Lake, all of them. But it's been like their boundary corners because you got Emmanuel Forbes and Durant out there. And it's like I like Durant, like he's fine, but like I don't think he's like a star corner. He got 2 picks this game. Good on him. And he's starting to earn himself some money, but I felt like there were ways for the Bears to be able to attack them, but they just wouldn't let the Rams defense just. I mean, they came through and played exceptionally well. I mean, Jared Verse led the team in pressures, and Joe Tooney had to go out and play tackle, which I mean, if you saw how he played against the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year when he was on the Chiefs, could have probably predicted this wasn't going to go too well for them. I'm not going to say he played terrible, but Jared Verse on Joe Tooney on the tackle is, I'm going to take Jared Verse on that every time. The Rams were able to run the ball well in this game. I just, and I know they only scored 20 points, but it was a close game because of, I think partly because of the weather and just how these teams were able to attack each other. It was the Bears defense was really good at like kind of like that bend don't break kind of mentality this game until it came time to win it.
Yeah. What I'll say is that I think both defenses really deserve credit in this type of game. Like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua was held for 5 for 56 yards, and Devontae Adams 2 for 24.
Oh, Tyreek Stevenson was awesome this game for the Bears.
And 0 touchdowns between both of them. That's 16 total targets between two phenomenal receivers, and 0 touchdowns, and only 7 allowed catches for a combined less than 80 yards between them. It's impressive, and I think that is it's well. And then you look on the other side of this, and the Rams 3 interceptions, and it's like, all right, yes, one of them was yes. What I'll say with this is that yes, it is clearly on DJ Moore to keep running that route. At the same time, and I think, and this is a question I have, is that Caleb Williams as a second-year quarterback, are you telling him to still take that throw even if DJ Moore runs the route? Because I think and that's my question, where I was like, I don't like, and I was looking and I was like, yes, clearly DJ Moore's fault. You're already in field goal range. I would have preferred you play it safe, and I think that's something that as he continues to develop, I question if that's a decision where he's like, I should even take that throw, because, and I think even the commentator said it, where it was like, oh, like that should be DJ Moore that's like diving out to make that diving catch. And I was like, I don't know if I want him to be making a diving catch in this scenario. Like, it shouldn't be that case. I think you should play it safe. If there's not an easy option, then you're already in field goal range. You shouldn't risk it. But I want to get your thoughts on that.
No, I mean I agree. Because you're right. It's like, should he have made that throw in general? I don't know. But at the same, this is what I'm trying to say with Caleb Williams is, the big plays are there. Like, we know he can make the big plays. What he needs to get better at, and you hear players like Tom Brady talk about this time when they critique other young quarterbacks, it's you have to enjoy the little things, right? You have to be good at the little things. So then when the big things happen, like it all flows together way better, and you'll get those bigger plays because you're better at the little things, right? If you're taking those dump offs when the secondary is clamping everybody up, you have to take the easy yards right there, right? You can't always try to hunt the big play, right? If you're being too aggressive and you're always trying to hunt the big play, like we see with like Josh Allen would do sometimes when he would get criticized for that, like playing the unconscious. There's a level to it that you always want with that, but you still have to move the ball down the field in increments, right? To like, it's like boxing. It's like you want to get those jabs in, and then you can get the knockout hit, right? You have to be able to perfect those jabs instead of just being always going out for the knockout punch. It's like, this would be like a critique I have of like a baseball player like Bryce Harper, right? It's like, you're always swinging for the home run. Why don't you give me a single every once in a while, right? It's like, you have to have that bit of Ichiro in you to get on base.
That's what we're switching to?
What?
We're switching to MLB once football wraps up?
Hell no.
Another wrinkle?
Hell no. Oh, no, we're good there. But but it's just my thing. It's like, sometimes you just got to get on base, right? Like, you don't always have to go for the home run and get on base. And I think that's like the next step with Caleb Williams, like to put together these consistent drives, because we saw in the second half, man, they weren't able to get shit going. I mean, they were showing it. It was like they weren't getting any first downs. They weren't able to move the ball at all. And because of that, the Rams stick around, and you end up in an overtime in. And the only reason you get to overtime, which we should talk about this play a little bit more, is Caleb Williams has to backpedal 30 yards to throw a 50-yard touchdown that's in the air, but it's only like a 14-yard touchdown in the books. But the ball was in the air for 50 yards, and it was basically like a Hail Mary throw to the back left of the end zone. And it was an amazing play. Like, when it happened, I was like, that is one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in my life. Like, straight up. Like, Caleb Williams, like, that is now a legendary play within the NFL, like, history books. Yeah. But the only reason you had to make that play because you weren't able to put anything together consistently all game, including that final drive, really. And then you get into overtime, and it's the same issues. You another turnover, which is the theme of this playoff so far, has been who can turn the ball over less, unless you're the Eagles. But it's like, who can turn the ball over less, and keep consistent drives going. And listen, man, 3 interceptions from your quarterback is just not going to do it, especially to seal the game.
Yeah, and that's what I say is that, like, when you're struggling to score all, like, really the second half, and you finally get an opportunity to win the game in overtime, I think it is an absolute play it safe. And yes, I understand you still want to progress further and make life easier for your kicker. I still don't think that is a throw that he should have made in that, or at least attempted in that moment. And yes, like at the end of the day, should DJ Moore have still attempted to even make a play on that? Absolutely. I'm not just gonna say he shouldn't have, but I do think and I think repeat the situation a year from now, say we're in the exact same situation. I don't think Caleb Williams makes that throw.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, at least if you're the Bears, like it sucks, right? Obviously, you want to win, move on. But first year with Ben Johnson, second year with Caleb Williams, you've got some other good young pieces like Monangai, Luther Burden, right, on offense, and some promising pieces on defense that can still be built around. I think the future is bright for the Bears still.
Absolutely. Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some. We're going to talk about some coaching changes again that happened, as well as some hires that happened. We're finally seeing some roles being filled, so we can talk about those a little bit. We'll just kind of like update on them and give our quick thoughts before we move on to the preview for this next week for the championship games, because we're going to be doing a more like detailed run through of all these teams throughout the offseason and the changes that they've had since then. So. We'll dive into more detail about these coaches and some of our expectations, but we'll start with what was the biggest one. It was kind of one that came like the obvious hire in the end, but it was Harbaugh to the Giants. It was funny because it came out like, okay, they're giving him like a big contract. I think it's like 5 year, 100 mil or something like that. But then it was like, okay, but there's a little bit of like pitch in it because there's talks about like who's in charge of what and who has this much authority over what. And basically, it's like Harbaugh. It seems like he just wants like the Brady treat, or not the Brady treatment. Sorry, the Belichick treatment, where he's running everything, right? Like, I'm not gonna say he's the GM, but he sounds like he is the GM for this team at the same time. It's like Joe Shane's still there, but I mean, how much do you trust him? And anyways, but yeah, it sounds like they were like, we have to get Harbaugh in here no matter what, whatever concessions we do to make, we're gonna do that. I guess I would say this is it's a good hire, right? Like he was a really good coach. He wins a lot of games. The postseason success is what it is, right? But for the Giants, you're probably just thinking like we need an adult in the room who's mature, who's going to make sure our team is ready to go each and every day. And then, I mean, we'll see how they build it out from here with the young players that they have to go forward. But I just like, I don't know. How do you feel about this hire? Because I'm like on the fence about it.
So, I like it for the obvious reasons of he has the pedigree that you would be looking for, and I think especially any major market team and especially any New York team, I think you need to be able to have a pretty thick skin, and I think he's developed that over his 18 years in Baltimore. From there, I have questions about what because I think the Giants are a team that I really think that despite the record, they have so much going for them, and it is like a couple of seasons from now they will be a problem if managed properly, because you have so many different things. Of your defensive line is phenomenal, and especially they're only going to get older. You're going to have players like Abdul Carter is going to be a problem when he finally gets his legs underneath him and he's able to actually finish some of these sacks.
And not get in trouble with his own team.
Yes. Then you have Malik Neighbors, who's becoming healthy. You have Jackson Dart, who you think you can rely on as your future quarterback. I still have some concerns about that.
That's still in the air. Yeah.
I think people are a lot higher than I think I'm a lot lower, I should say, than people typically are on him. And they're like, oh, he's rookie of the year, and I'm like, I don't know about all that. I can at least name at least 3 to 4 offensive players that I'd say were better than him. But at the end of the day, I think it's a step in the right direction for them. I'm concerned about how many steps that is, but I still think it's a step.
Yeah, maybe this is just me not having faith in the front office that is the New York Giants and a lot of decisions that they make. But I mean, if Harbaugh has all the same, but this is the same thing. Like the Ravens have generally a well-respected front office between ownership and like GM and all that, with how they draft and how they build their team up. And obviously, you're looking at in the past few years, maybe thinking, ugh. But generally, they're well respected. You go to the Giants and you give a guy full control like this, especially like your CEO type head coach, and he's coming in there and saying he wants even more power than he had in his previous spot, it sounds like, and more control of the decision making. I don't know. Part of me is, I think I'm more in the field of people who are like, I would rather see this sort of old guard of coaches just move on. Like I'm ready for all of like that older generation to move on as head coaches at least, where especially like the CEO type, because it does get to a point where it's like, okay, you're in charge of these decisions, and we're going to trust you to do that, but then it's up to your coordinators to make everything else happen at the same time on the field. So like now for a Harbaugh, like this is it, right? This is kind of it. Like if this goes poorly, then like, again, it's another old CEO type head coach where you're like, okay, well, what were we doing here?
He's 63 years old. There isn't much else to really kind of go from here. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm really interested to see how this will play out. But I do think it is a positive.
There's a lot of work to do for him there. So I'm with you in the fact like with what you said where it's like what are the next steps, like what is their path forward, like what is Harbaugh's vision for this team? That's what I want to see and figure out because I'm a little skeptical if I'm being honest, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, the other head coach hire that happened was, or there's a couple more to talk about, was but we'll go with Robert Saleh to Tennessee. I like this a lot.
Okay. I like this a lot, and I think this is everyone's natural concern is that yes, Robert Saleh, you're going to bring him in. He's going to be your defensive-minded coach. What is next for Cam Ward? But at the same time, you can and I think I was a bit more optimistic about this before all the offensive coordinator options flew off the board. But I'm really interested to see what happens with Cam Ward. And I think there's potentially a lot of talks, but we've seen lots of names. Brian Dable has been thrown around, but the Bills are open, so
yeah,
it basically seems like that's
that's another conversation.
But either way, I like it, and I'll start there because yes, you could say, oh well, what about Cam Ward? I don't want to say like, oh, he'll figure it out, but I think you can bring in a good offensive mind. I think it is difficult to find a better defensive mind in the league than Robert Saleh.
He's one of the better defensive minds. Like if I had to pick like top 5 defensive coordinators, he's in there.
Yes, and obviously he got a difficult kind of route of it, but at the same time I think this is what teams were looking at him when they were offering him head coaching jobs was the Jets. I think we can all
I don't hold the Jets against him. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean like he did his best, considering where they were, and I think the defense, especially when you were looking when he was there, and the injuries weren't an issue. The Jets defensively were a problem for teams.
And to be honest, even when they fired Saleh, I was like, really? I was like, why?
But there was a whole lot more to that.
Yeah.
Either way, at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know, it's the. It's the Jets being the Jets, and I'm glad that he finally gets an opportunity to go somewhere else. And I think really Tennessee as a whole, like they have and I think this will help especially because I was thinking about it like, well, what about Cam Ward? Like, is this really the best thing for him? And I was like, this is what made me just say like, well, you can find a better offensive mind because I think it is infinitely easier to find creative options when it comes to offensive coordinator and an offensive-minded head coach. It is so much more difficult to find someone who can be the defense, and really this Tennessee side of this as well, where it's like you can say you have, really all around you have positives on your roster. But I would say that there are definitely more positives on the offensive end than the defensive end. And to bring him in to say like let's work on this, let's kind of workshop this, and say like you have full creativity to essentially do what you want, blow it up, and really establish a much better defensive presence, and then bring in an offensive-minded coach who can just focus on that.
Yeah,
I will say, like, there's sides of that because like Jeffrey Simmons had one of his better years.
He's so good. He's so good, and I think Sweat,
Kaiir Elam, he's on the Titans, so that should tell you. And it's they a lot of injuries, but as it stands, like looking at the depth chart, he was their number one.
He wasn't their best corner though.
Yeah,
their slot corner is really really good. And then I think they have a Simmons and Sweat in the middle. Like I'm high on both of them. Simmons has already proven Sweat as I think he'll be more of a known name if under a guy like Saleh. And I think they have other pieces like that to work on defense. But we've seen Saleh like when he was with the 49ers right? With the Jets, he had like a bevy of like really good like first round pick type of players to work with, and they were really good defense. But we've also seen him with the 49ers when they had all these injuries, even on that defensive end, like no Fred Warner, no Bosa, right? Like guys like that. We still seen him able to like get those guys to play at like a high level of defense. So you give him a chance like that as a head coach with the Titans, you can trust him to build up this defense and put them in the right way, like right positions, right mentality, like all that. Like you trust him to coach your defense. And then you're also coming to a spot as you're Robert Saleh, you probably think like, well, this is sick. Like I've already got my quarterback.
Yeah,
Like that's why that's what we were talking about. Like I think this is actually like kind of like an underrated spot to go to if you're a head coach because you have and I don't know if everyone shares our opinions. I don't even know if you share my opinion with this as much as I do, but like I think Cam Ward like just reeks of franchise star quarterback.
I agree with
Like
you.
I think he's going to be a really really good quarterback in this league. I'm not going to like shoot my shot and say he's a top 5, but like top 10 quarterback in the league, yeah, I think he'll be there one day. So Robert Saleh is probably going to be excited, but then you're right. It's like, okay, who's calling your offense? Mike McDaniel, we'll talk about in a second, has been hired somewhere else now. Reportedly, it's not official, but reportedly he's going to be hanging out on the West Coast. So that's one of the better options out there. So who do they bring in? I'm really curious to see because I think that is like one of the biggest. That's like the biggest first step and maybe the most consequential step he has to take in his coaching tenure with the Titans.
I agree.
All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the other head coaching hire, which is Miami hiring Jeff Hafley, the former now defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. What were your thoughts on this one?
So, okay, I I want to say I'm a bit on the fence. I am a bit on the fence, and it's awkward for me to like fully place it into perspective. Um, but okay, I, when when Mike McDaniel was fired, I think at first we were like, oh, we're glad he made it through the first round of firings, and we were like, oh, like he deserves another chance, like especially considering what he was able to do in the second half of the season when the Dolphins really didn't have any expectations and was like, oh well, he's going to be consulting the Eagles by December, and they ended up being able to turn things around where they were like, well, obviously they were beating the Chiefs, but the Chiefs were having a down year, whatever. They were still pretty impressive and exceeded expectations in the second half of the season, all while like getting at least some positive little play out of Tua, and eventually benching him. But at the end of the day, I understand the need for change, and this is something that I mentioned when we talked about him going to the first round. Is that how much longer are you going to sit and waste a talented mind with this rebuild? Because it felt like they established like, yes, we admitted to a mistake. Tyreek Hill is old and coming off of an injury. We're probably moving on from him. Jalen Waddle is probably our only building block, and Devon Achane.
Yeah, I was about to say Achane. Yeah.
And there probably are two building blocks on offense, and from there it's going to be difficult to like move forward from here. But we're hitting a reset on our franchise, and I was interested to see how long they were going to say like we want McDaniels here to and how long even he wants to sit there and try to have to go through this thing, especially considering he's such a good offensive mind. But I was kind of when I was thankful that he's not wasting away in Miami. But I was thankful that like it's signal because I think it just makes sense. Like if you're going to blow up your team, you might as well have a new mind come in to really kind of lead that the next way. Because if not, you're going to keep McDaniels there. You're going to say, oh well, he's going to do this, and then we're going to move on. And this is my I don't say concern with Hafley, but what I'll say is that I believe he's been able to get a lot out of the Packers defense, and the fact that like before Micah Parsons, and I think we have to say like before and post Micah Parsons like the Bible, because before Micah Parsons they were still an elite. I don't say elite, but a pretty relatively defensive heavy team, I should say. Because I think the one question mark we were like, well, you got a lot of young pieces on the offensive end. You need to figure that out. Defense, we were like, it's like relatively set because you have these difference makers. Even before they went out and got Micah, they had difference makers all across the field. And I think the one thing you're looking at as well, what about your linebackers and maybe potentially your safeties? Either way, they were able to figure it out, and they were constantly competing. And you consider a game like the Packers had with the Eagles this season, where it was like an ugly, sloppy defensive game, but you held an Eagles offense, and yes, Kevin Patullo led Eagles offense. I'll mention that, but you still
Well, I mean, we saw what they did to like the Lions.
you held an Eagles offense, you held a Lions offense, and yes, two teams that were not the what we've seen for previous seasons where they're scoring every drive, but God damn it, you held two great offenses to damn near nothing, and I would say that is impressive, and I think the same thing with a defensive minded coach, the same way we talked about Salah going in to Titans and say, I'm glad for that. I'm the same way with Halfley. The one question not a question, more concern I have is that he's going into the Dolphins with no quarterback. Because
Yeah. This is a hire you make to change the culture, to like establish a new culture and fully rebuild your team.
exactly. And yes, and once again, it's the same thing we're talking about with the Titans, where you can bring in an offensive mind to really kind of like who's like, I really like this prospect, I really want to work with him. But we talked about this. And especially now that Dante Moore is going back to Oregon for another year, you're kind of looking at this and saying, well, the quarterback situation becomes very interesting. We're starting to see teams are going to be more aggressive in free agency with some of these quarterbacks. Like hell, Kyler Murray is going to be very interesting. I'm blanking on a bunch of, but either way, there will be. I promise you, there will be a lot of interesting. Daniel Jones. There will be a lot of interesting talks about some of these quarterbacks and what is the future for them. Hell, Malik Willis, who has been great stepping into the role, the backup role of Jordan Love. Mac Jones, who was great at stepping up in Brock Purdy's shoes. Like these quarterbacks will get second chances because teams like the Dolphins need a new culture, need to try to establish something moving forward. And it's really like I feel like the first step, especially to the Dolphins, when you're trying to reroute this culture, you can say, all right, Waddle, A-Chain are our guys. Who else do we have on this roster? Go out there and prove it for us and see like I don't say prove it year, but like a prove it to keep it year. Essentially, where it's like go out there, see what we have. All right, you show potential, we'll give you another year. All right, we're gonna cut our losses with you. We messed up if it was a draft pick, whatever. Moving forward and moving in a positive direction. So that's what my concern is, that he's going to a situation without a quarterback and really like kind of on a stain in the quarterback position of like having this to a contract situation. You're trying to have to figure this out, and you have Tua who's like, well, I want to be a starting quarterback, and it's like, well, I think we all know you're not, but yeah.
Well, I think part of the benefit of, and like, because we were talking about like we kind of didn't mind them keeping McDaniels at first, and I still think he could be a good head coach, but I think part of the reason why you would want to bring in a guy like Jeff Hafley is that he doesn't have any attachment to Tua, right? There's less feelings and emotions and history with him, where he can just be like, look, man, I wasn't here when they drafted you, and I'm not going to be here. Like, you're not going to be here after I'm here for much longer, even if it's like maybe the first season we'll be together because of money reasons, but we're clearly moving on for you, so there's no emotion there. And at the same time, like I do think there's pieces on both sides of the ball that he can walk into this being like, okay, like we're not starting from zero, right? I do think the O-line made improvements as the season went along and showed that they could be at least a good run blocking O-line, and they have some younger pieces there to work with. Like you said, they have Achane and Waddle. On defense, you got guys like, and I don't know, some of these contracts may be coming up. Like I don't know, like Bradley Chubb or Mika Fitzpatrick, how much longer they're in the team on defense, but like you have some decent linebacker play, like guys like Dodson, Jordan Brooks, and then Chop Robinson, your young edge rusher, who I think it can be good as well. So it's like Zach Sealer, like there's players here to work with and build up with, and now it's just change that culture and let's rebuild this up and what Hafley wants to do. And he also brought along a guy from the Packers front office to be the GM with them as well. So clearly they liked whatever they had going on with the Packers, and they were like, okay, this is the kind of culture we want to establish here in Miami with Hafley. I am curious to see, though, who's going to be running this offense, quarterback and coordinator-wise, but, I mean, hey, we'll see what happens. All right, one more head coaching hire to talk about. That was the Atlanta Falcons hiring Stefanski. This was an interesting one, but one I'm kind of like, I don't hate it, but like I'm intrigued. Like I'm curious to see how he can work with this offense with all the pieces that they have. It'll be nice to see him work with a team like this where he has such options at offense, but we still don't know the quarterback. Like that's still being kind of like we're still learning, right? We don't know if Michael Penix is truly the guy to move with going forward, and I'm guessing Kirk Cousins won't be on this team moving forward. Although I think Stefanski likes Kirk Cousins, so maybe we'll see what happens there. But what did you think about this hire?
So.
And we can talk about some of the beef that has come up because of it.
So I'll kind of start with like we talk about like resetting franchises, and I think the Falcons more than anything we've mentioned have really kind of reset things. Not just it wasn't just a Raheem Morris dismissal; it was also their GM. So I think like you talk about clean slates, I think the Falcons probably had one of the cleanest slates with the most upside because this was a team that was still 8-9. Like yes, and especially in the NFC South, like that like one more win swings their way, and they're a playoff team, especially if it's against a division rival. So I look at this and say like this is a team that like it is very easy to say like well they're stuck in that middling that middling area where they've had back-to-back seasons of 8-9 records, but I really feel like this position out of all of them has the most upside. You have a Bijan Robinson. Yes, the quarterback situation can still be obviously still very messy, but that defense especially showed so much flashes of potential where you're like, hey, we were throwing darts out there. I'd be like, we're like we need as much help on the defensive line as we can. We'll trade up. We'll get whoever we want. Like just we need help. And to see that it was somewhat to some degree relatively worth it in the sense that you potentially have two new stalwarts on your defensive line is a positive fact. You still have AJ Terrell out there, who's one of the better DBs in the league. He kind of goes under the radar. Most DBs do, because if you're not hearing about them, it's probably a good thing. I think the one thing that I can say about bringing Stefanski in is that you potentially have a coach who like very easily could solve this quarterback situation for you relatively soon. If he gets his hands on Penix and is like, all right, let's go in there, let's workshop it and see if this is the guy for us moving forward. And I think that will be the biggest test in his first year, is to say, is this our guy moving forward? And
I can't wait for Joe Flacco to play snaps for this team next year.
He loves his older quarterbacks. Dang,
all right, but look, he comes in. This is a guy who's been coach of the year before, right? He's got the pedigree. It's just you're a coach. It's like the Jets, right? You're a coach for the Browns. Like we all understand what that uphill battle is, especially after trading for Deshaun Watson and all that shit that the Browns did to screw over their franchise. But yeah, you bring him in, you bring some stability, a culture change for you on offense, a guy who can clearly the strength of your team is offense, so I don't mind you bringing in a guy to maximize that, like head coach down. He brings over an offensive coordinator with him from the Browns as well, so that what they clearly like what he was talking about, like his offensive. Like part of me wants to think that like in the meeting with their owner, he was like, "Look, I know it looked bad with the Browns, but I promise you, like when I have the right pieces, I can make this work." And they're probably like, "Oh, look, you see all this year it was good when we did this, and this year it was good when we did this. Like I made Jameis Winston look good for a few games, like it was fine. Like there's probably stuff like that going on there." And I don't think that the Falcons are wrong for bringing him. Like I think this could be a good hire for them if you can maximize the offense. It's just Falcons again just seem like a team that's just cursed. So like part of me is always like skeptical of like, all right, I guess we'll see what happens here. It's like you can make the right hires, but I don't know. But I think the big part also was getting the GM out of there. So like I think this could be a good like turn the leaf moment for the Falcons, and I think they're gonna be trying to accelerate this semi rebuild like even faster because their owner clearly wants to win something, man, and he's only getting older. So I think they're going to be putting their foot down on the gas. I think we're going to see them be aggressive this offseason with like certain moves they could make. I mean, of course, you already got rid of your first round pick, getting James Pierce in there this last year. Like I said, I think both good players that they got. I think especially Pierce like really shined for them later on in the season. I'm just curious to see the way they went about it was still wrong, I think, but. Yeah, so now I'm curious to see what this offseason looks like there for them. What moves they can make, who they keep, who they get rid of, all that stuff. But it'll all be under what Stefanski wants. And then apparently Matt Ryan. There was a weird thing with Adam Schefter tweeting out like, "Oh, they have Philly connection." Like, Matt Ryan and they're both from the Philly area and blah blah blah. I'm like, why are they so like they're like honing in on this? Like they're Philly guys. I'm like, who cares? Like,
did you take it personally?
Yeah, no, it was just like weird that they were really like putting that under a microscope. They're like, oh, they have like a Philly connection. I'm like, dude, was that really like is that what like tipped the scale here? Was like, oh, like Matt Ryan's like, yeah, he's telling Arthur Blank, he's like, I love this guy. He does all these great things. Like he's a really good head coach. I love his mind, his schemes, all that stuff. But also, he's from Philly, so I'm gonna put him over this guy. It's like that's like the impression I got. I'm like, who? Like whatever. I don't know, sometimes when they put stuff out there, I'm like, why are they like pushing this out like to the media as like something we should care about? Anyways, but yeah, so like I said, we'll get into more of some of these coaching stuff later on. But the last one we got to touch on is Mike McDaniel is reportedly going to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Something I mentioned as being a good idea and something that I would potentially do. And the Chargers apparently agreed with me. I don't know if they listen to our show, but they probably do. Of course they do. They're one of our 8 viewers. but uh, but yeah, I mean, it's great, man. Like I think this could be a really good move for Justin Herbert. Like I genuinely think, especially with McDaniels and mirroring him and what Harbaugh like to do. Harbaugh is always kind of that guy that wants to be like we've seen him be there. Like they want to be able to run the ball well, have a strong goal line in front of that, and be able to, and then be able to take the shot with Justin Herbert. And I think bringing a guy like Mike McDaniel is perfect for this because we saw in the past that his passing concepts and his creativity with it, like like doing the motion stuff and kind of almost doing like the CFL rules when it comes to getting that head start with your run before you go into your route and the ball is snapped. Like we've seen him be able to creative in the passing concepts, but then we also saw this last season with McDaniel that he really evolved with the run game as well, and he was able to transition his team from being a pass first kind of team with the Dolphins to then being a run first kind of team with Achane and making that your strength. So I think we've seen him have that creativity and the willingness to change and the flexibility that he has as a play caller and just the innovation that he has. You bring that in with a guy like Harbaugh and you put a quarterback with Justin Herbert, I think he's a really good quarterback. It's just it seems like anytime they get a postseason, things fall apart. And Justin Herbert was not good in the playoffs this year. But you bring in a guy like McDaniel, you get your team a little bit healthier. You have the pieces to work with going forward. Where if your O-line can be healthy, you have a good running back in Hampton. You have some receivers to work with. You probably need to add some more there. But I think a guy like Ladd McConkey will perform really well under a guy like McDaniel. And I think McDaniel is also an underrated receiver kind of coach. Like we saw that when he was with the Browns and the Niners. Like many times with Shanahan, like there's stories about him out there where like some of his former receivers, I forget which one it was, that one of his receivers on the Browns, they were talking about they were going over like your release off the line of scrimmage, and he was telling his players to look at basketball tape and guys like Allen Iverson because of how they would cross guys over with their footwork. And he was saying like we could do stuff like this with our releases. So you're getting a guy like that and also to help a young and like kind of like receiver room that you're still trying to put together for Justin Herbert. So I think there's a lot of things that McDaniels can bring to this team that like I think this will be a really good fit.
Yeah, and especially considering all the criticism surrounding Justin Herbert, especially, I think this would be the perfect opportunity. And I'm not going to sit here and say this is his last, chance.
No, yeah.
But I think that's a bit drastic. But I do think like this is really an opportunity for Justin Herbert to prove himself because it's like, all right, it's another step in the right direction of getting Justin Herbert everything he needs to really get him over the hump, and especially in the playoffs and really showing up because we've seen it constantly throughout his career where it's like, all right, we've seen you perform very well in the regular season and then things get down the stretch and we start to see the same issues we see every time in the postseason. And I think like one way to scheme around that is to have great offensive coaches. And I think that, or really whatever position it was, like offense, defense, is to scheme around these type of things. And I think at times, and you mentioned this, like you were like, when was the last time we heard Ladd McConkey? And I was like, good question, because he's disappeared virtually.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you in the sense that in this McDaniel's offense, if this is true, that we will see like him being used a lot more. I think we'll be able to get more out of Quentin Johnston. Like I think, and especially because he showed flashes of it where like we keep joking about it. It's like Brazil probably thinks he's one of our better receivers here in America. But I think this will be the perfect. It's a win-win for everybody, and especially considering you look at like he's going to get another head coaching opportunity. Like it is literally like I think next year come this time, unless the Chargers offense just falls down a hill and everything's terrible, he'll be a name thrown around come coaching decision time. And I think when you were looking at the options that were available this offseason, you started to look around and say, if I don't think any of them are for me, cool, I'll hold off. And I think this is the best decision for him.
100%. Yeah, this one makes like I said, it's not fully official yet. Apparently, he's still like keeping an eye on a couple of head coaching vacancies that are out there, but all reports are saying that like the job is his if he wants it, and it sounds like it's leaning that way. And I think he prefers being in California as well. But
yeah,
all right,
unfortunately.
Yeah, trust me. All right, now we're moving on to the games for the conference championship games. We're going to be talking about the AFC and NFC championship games here in a second. We're previewing those, unless you wanted to talk about anything else before we moved on.
No.
Perfect. Okay, let's get to it because I am excited to talk about these. We'll start with the AFC game first. We're talking Patriots and Broncos. Of course, this game we're going to be without Bo Nix. Extremely unfortunate for Broncos fans and just for football in general. Like obviously, you want to see both teams be at their best and healthiest when they go against each other. But I still think this could be an intriguing game for a few reasons. Although I will say up front, I'm leaning the Patriots. Like I'm picking the Patriots to win this game, mainly because of the quarterback thing. But I will say, man, if Drake May wins this game, despite even with that, if Bo Nix is whether he's playing or not, this was according to NGS. It was a fun stat I saw earlier. Drake May will face the Broncos' second-ranked total defense this weekend after defeating the fifth-ranked Chargers and top-ranked Texans defenses. He would become the first quarterback ever to win 3 playoff games against top 5 total defenses in a single postseason. So, look, we talked about all year, and we said this early in the show too, how easy the schedule was for the Patriots and the defenses they were going against. He's passed a couple tests already. Drake May has. So if he beats the Broncos as well, and then he has to go to the Super Bowl to play potentially the Seahawks, and wins that, we're gonna be talking about Drake May in some like crazy conversations, man. Because that is it's already an impressive postseason run and resume he's putting together as a second-year quarterback who's potentially going to win the MVP. But if he keeps going on this run, it's going to be crazy conversations we're having. And I mean, this is the type of greed that they talked about in the Bible with what the Patriots got going on here with the fucking Tom Brady era, then to going back into this. But I mean, yeah, crazy stuff that the Patriots are doing, man. On the Broncos side, what I'm worried about, the biggest thing I'm worried about with them missing Bo Nix is not what they're going to be missing with him in the passing game. It's what they're going to be missing with him in the running game. Because Bo Nix has been the leading rusher for the Broncos in this postseason, like in general. Like in both games that they've played, like he has been their best runner. So now you put Stidham in there, who, like, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a statue, but I don't think we're worried about his legs like we would be Bo Nix's. So I think that already takes out an element of this offense that the Broncos will be missing. So maybe you look to R.J. Harvey, and they're talking about J.K. Dobbins might even come back for this game, stepping up more in a running role for them. I actually thought R.J. Harvey, I know it was limited touch-ins and the numbers don't pop out from them for this last game that they had against the Bills. I thought he had a good game. Like I genuinely think like he had a good game.
Plays when they needed him to.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like like he was breaking tackles and getting moving the chains when they needed him to. So I think maybe they leaned into him a little bit more. But yeah, what your biggest worry is Stidham's connection with the receivers, right? It's like I think it said the only player who's actually caught a touchdown for Jarrett Stidham on this roster has been Lil Jordan Humphrey. So, which by the way, apparently it's like law that you have to say his full name every time you mention him. Like anytime he ever catches a ball in a game, they're like Lil Jordan Humphrey. I'm like, you could just say Humphrey. Like you don't have to say his full name, but it is a fun name to say all the way through. But yeah, so for the Broncos, like look, their O-line, they're good. They're great pass protectors, right? They'll be able to keep Stidham healthy for the most part, I think, although we talked about how good this D-line for the Patriots can be. So we'll see if players like Milton Williams and Chase on can still get after it. But I think it's going to come down to Stidham not turning the ball over and just making the right plays that are in front of him, which I'm sure Sean Payton, like this is going to be a Sean Payton kind of legacy run here, right? If he can win this game, go to the Super Bowl, because I think the offense is heavily going to be on him and how he sets up these drives for Stidham.
All right, you said you're leaning Patriots.
Are you leaning Broncos?
Whoa! Let me get there. Yes, I'm leaning Broncos. And it's something that I mentioned, and it's when we were talking about the Patriots earlier, and it is the fact that they weren't able to capitalize on the Texans turnovers. And yes, Texas defense elite, and I think they're going up against another elite defense in in the Broncos. And that's what makes me a bit hesitant, because it's like, all right, you're going to a defense that is a little bit less as aggressive, like literally a step below the Texans in terms of aggression and being able to capitalize on these moments. But they are still so good at these moments that it makes me like question that. I think we will see a similar type of pressure that we saw Drake May under last game. And you mentioned
100%.
Where it's like we are looking at the Broncos offense to do. And I mentioned Drake May played the way we needed to see him play, where he's taking care of the ball, not forcing things. And I think this really, as you mentioned, hinges on the rushing defense of the Patriots, really. Because and this is what stood out to me when I was looking at the numbers, is that the Patriots have the 6th best rushing defense in terms of like allowed rushing yards. Because the Jaguars the Broncos, Seattle Texans, and the Buccaneers, surprisingly, all have
Vita
held.
Vea.
Yeah, well, that massive man of a man. Well, that helps.
Yeah.
They all had better run defenses in terms of like rushing yards allowed, which makes me say like, all right, we need the Broncos to like run the ball, which is why we've seen the talks about J.K. Dobbins is coming back. But I still think that if Jarrett Stidham can go out there, make the right throws, at least get some support. And you mentioned R.J. Harvey, he can get a couple of explosive plays. I think that this is a game the Broncos can win. Like, because I think it really comes down to main winning the battle, especially at the line of scrimmage. And I think the Broncos offensive line, I think, will be able to hold up hell of a lot better than the Texans offensive line will. And I think like it's because of that. I think we'll see that the Patriots aren't going to be able to get the same level of pressure that we saw C.J. Stroud being pressured with. We aren't going to see, Jarrett Stidham be forced to. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong about this, but I don't think we're going to see him have to drop back every time, or hell, even have to drop back every time if they get the run game going. I think that for the Broncos, like yes, you're starting a second string quarterback who like and you have BDN reaching out and wishing his well.
That is Nick Foles for those who aren't aware.
Say what do you think BDN? Why don't you let the people know? Because not everyone knows what BDN stands for.
That would be Big Dick Nick, as in Nick Foles, the man who apparently has the largest hog in Eagles history. Well, you asked me.
All this to say, I think, as crazy as it seems, I think that there's a lot more that needs to go right for the Patriots in this game than there is the Broncos. Because I think, and I don't want to sit there and say like you can throw any quarterback behind the Broncos offensive line, but I think if and it really hinges if, and I think this will be a difference maker, and it would prove that I'm a dumbass or I was a genius with this, is how well the run game is able to establish.
Yeah.
The Texans defense just shut it down. But at the same time, or not the Texans defense, the Bills defense shut it down. But I still think that it's going to be difficult with so many different options. You have J.K. Dobbins coming back, and you mentioned R.J. Harvey. Like they're going to lean on this because they understand they got a second string quarterback in there, and they need to develop the run. And I think Sean Payton, you mentioned, is smart enough to be able to coach a cohesive game plan for this.
Yeah, there's some fun individual matchups in this one too, like cross board. Like whoever is going against Will Campbell, whether that be Benito, Cooper, like whoever it is, like that's going to be interesting to watch. Like Will Campbell is going to be a big part of the Patriots' success if they have it. And then it's also Pat Surtain, man. Who is he going to be able to shut down Stephon Diggs? I believe he would be able to, but I'm saying like you probably have him on Diggs the entire game, following him around, right? So then who steps up for you on offense if you're the Patriots, right? Is it one of your tight ends like Hunter Henry? Or are you going to get the run game going, which is going to be pretty hard with a D-line where you have Zach Allen? Like you already mentioned how tough that's going to be for them. And then you have, what was I going to say? Are you going to have Demario Douglas or Kayshon Boutte be able to step up again for you? So it's like I'm curious to see like who is going to be able to step up for them with Drake May to get things going on offense if Pat Surtain is shutting down Stephon Diggs. But then even then, it's not going to be tough. Like we saw what McMillan was doing against the Bills and what he's done all year. So that's going to make things harder for Douglas. So are we going to see, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so this is basically going to end up being like a Kayshon Boutte, Riley Moss kind of game where we see that matchup and it's like milk check every snap. But we'll see on that end. And then, yeah, Christian Gonzalez on oh my gosh, actually, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Cooper, oh. Yeah, there's some really fun individual matchups in this one.
A lot of fun individual matchups here. But I keep going back to the one that I think will determine this game, and it's going to be, like, you could say all of it I think goes down to the Broncos offensive line against the Patriots defensive line. Because that would dictate how comfortable Jarrett Stidham is. It would dictate how comfortable the Broncos are dictating the tempo of this game, and it will just really dictate everything moving forward for both teams.
Yeah, real curious on this one, man. Like I don't know. I like I'm slightly leaning Patriots. You said you're slightly leaning Broncos.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, mom. But yeah, so I don't know. Listen, man. Maybe this is just me finally believing in Drake May and just being like, I think they'll get it, but we'll see what happens. Eddie. Like somebody else has to step up besides Stephon Diggs, like because I think Patrick Surtain is going to be a huge factor in this.
Yeah.
And I think Surtain on defense and then Will Campbell on offense are some of the two bigger like linchpins when it comes to this game. All right, you ready for the next one?
Let's go.
All right, final game of the playoffs. Jesus, of the
Whoa.
week. Yeah, I'm getting way ahead of myself here already. We got the Seahawks and the Rams, which I can't wait for this, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. Third time they'll be playing each other this year, obviously as division rivals. You get McDonald against McVay. Already, that's an insanely fun coaching matchup that we get to see for a third time in a season. That I feel like we're spoiled in that sense. You have who is considered probably to be the most the peak of what offensive coordinator and offensive mind is in the NFL and Sean McVay, and then the up and coming what you can probably consider the peak at it now within the NFL with defense in Mike McDonald. And I can't wait to watch this, man. Like, because for the Seahawks end of this, it's obviously it starts with their defense, and they're gonna. It's going to be how Stafford handles the pressure. That is the biggest thing for me in this game. That is the number one thing for me this entire game is how does Matthew Stafford. Wow, I went real like Pittsburgh there, or Chicago. Matthew Stafford. How does he handle the pressure that he's going to get from the Seahawks? Dude, don't worry about it. We're just going to move on, cut it, whatever. How does Matthew Stafford handle the pressure that comes from the Seahawks? DeMarcus Lawrence, Ernest Jones floating around in the middle of the field. Is he going to be able to get a no-look pass off against this defense? That is something I'm actually going to be looking for because he keeps doing it in playoff games. Is this a team he can get a no-look pass off of? That'll be they're going to be looking out for stuff like that. So stay disciplined, stay in your passing lanes. And then Puka and Devontae Adams against this secondary. Puka is going to take some hits this game. That's going to be for sure. Like the run after the catch stuff, like they're going to be going after him. And then for the Seahawks on offense, can JSN take advantage of what should be some should be easier challenge for him on defense this week going against these boundary corners? And then who else can step up like in the run game? Like you're going to have Kenny Walker obviously doing a lot for you, but are you going to get something else from any of the other running backs, or is it just going to be like, just pound as much as we can and then see if we can get big play out of Sam Darnold? You get a little bit healthier Sam Darnold in this game too, so maybe you can open up the playbook a little bit more than you did last time. So, like things like that, that's what I'm looking for. And then I think Kyron Williams would be a big part of this because if Stafford's going to be under pressure the whole time and he's not going to be able to like have much time back there to throw the ball, I think he'll probably end up having to throw this ball about as quick as he did last time against the Bears, who were setting 7 at him at one point. So if Kyron Williams can get it going, maybe alleviate some of that pressure. I just don't see the Rams love to do play action, man. I'm pretty sure they ran the most play action plays than anyone else throughout the season. So I'm really curious to see if they're going to be able to even get to a play action game against the Seahawks.
Yeah, so I'm interested in this game for a variety of reasons, and it's mostly because of their last matchup. Week 16 they played, and I think it was one of the best games of the season. I feel like we were saying that after every week, the past couple games the way they were shaking out. But it was a 38-37 overtime game where it was insane. Multiple plays of action back and forth where it was like you genuinely didn't know who was going to win it. It was like who got the ball last. And something that I will say from that game, what that really I think will play a factor in it is the fact that Seattle is a team that, and you mentioned like teams that feel like it's their destiny to win. It feels like to me the Seahawks are a team like that, and I think when you see that Shaheed kickoff return touchdown, that it's a moment where I'm like I feel it with this team. And I think the last game that they played against the Rams was another game where it's like you feel it with this team. They were down 16 points, and what we talked about this. Who was the person that kicked off that comeback for them? It was Shaheed, and this was a player that they went and got for a reason. And I think we were looking at it and saying, well, you have JSN, you have all these weapons on offense, and it's like, well, trust me, if he makes a difference in the special teams unit, and he was that player that really was able to turn things around for them. I think, and this is what we've seen looking at the Rams and Bears game, is that we didn't see the Rams close out the Bears. And guess what? We have Caleb Williams, who is, we're calling him Iceman now. Like,
And if
he's
the Bears defense was able to hold them to 20 points, which had to go to
exactly.
overtime,
This Seattle defense is going to make their life hell. And then you combine the fact that the Seattle offense, even if they struggle, will be able to eventually find their footing. It is inevitable. Like that, and even the fact that they don't have Charbonnet for the rest of the playoffs, you still have Kenny Walker, you still have JSN, you still have great tight ends as well. Like this is a team that like you will not be able to contain their offense for long. And I don't think that the Rams will be able to like push themselves out far enough in a lead where they can say like we are good to hold off Seattle, if that makes any sense. Like I think the Seattle team, one, isn't going to be able to quit, and two, if that's the case, you need to build yourself out a confident enough lead where you can say this game is put away. And I don't think the Rams can do that against the Seattle defense. So that's why I'm like, as much as I say like, oh, like is there an angle like this game? It was a 1 point game the last time they played, and then the Rams won the earlier matchup. So it'd be irresponsible to say that this is a clear Seattle like blow away type of win. But I think no matter the score, Seattle just will do enough to win this game.
yeah, and, yeah. The individual matchups in this one, I mean, you're going to have Witherspoon on Puka, you're going to have Reek Woolen on Devontae Adams, and a mixed match of that because of how they move these guys around. You're going to have Jared Verse on what has been actually like a decent O line for them, and I'm curious to see like Zabel against Fisk, like things like that, and then you're going to be looking at damn, dude, I can't wait for the safeties trying to figure out what the hell is going on with JSN. JSN, I mean, think about the receivers in this game. You have the first and second in receiving yards with JSN and Puka, right, in the league, and then Devontae Adams who led the league in touchdowns. So you have three of the probably what you could consider the top five receivers in the NFL this season because you have Devontae Adams led the league in touchdowns, and like I said, the other two are leading the league in yards. So that's a lot of fun in this one to watch. And then, I mean, because we saw Stafford had one game where he had less than 200 passing yards against the Seahawks, and then the other one he had like nearly 500. So it's like one or the other. And I think a part of it is just like Stafford's just going to have to play out of his mind. Like it's going to have to be like, but this Seahawks team has so much momentum going for them. This Seahawks defense hasn't allowed a touchdown all postseason, by the way.
Yeah.
They haven't allowed one touchdown this entire postseason.
And then you combine that with the fact that this offense, and I think, yes, a lot of criticism has been tossed to Sam Darnold and the fact that we're still a little concerned about what the playoff success will look like. But this is an offense that was averaging 28 points per game, which is third best behind, well, ironically, the Rams, who are first with 30.5 points per game. But this offense can still get after it, and you have like a JSN, a top receiver. Like this is going to be a I don't I'm like I think I'm leaning that this could be another shootout, the same way that last game was, opposed to I think it was 21-17 victory the last time the Rams won early in the season. So
See, I'm leaning more of like a 28-7 win for the Seahawks.
28-7.
Maybe that's too much for like too because the Rams offense is so good. So maybe I'm thinking more of like a 14-28 win. Like I'll give them another touchdown, but this is how much I believe in the Seahawks and specifically their defense.
When I say shootout, I still could like it'd be crazy to say like I think it's a shootout, but I still think the Seattle wins by 2 possessions, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, because it's like they will. Their defense one is going to be aggressive and constantly like I talk about the offense not quitting, but this defense isn't going to quit as well. And the way that they are able to respond to adversity says so much about this team. And I think when you have a head coach who is great at like leading that defensive unit, I'm right this time, I know I am. Then you'll be able to really kind of just he's able to back that, and we'll be able to see that reflected on this team.
Yeah, this game is set up to be such a good one. Like this could be a generational like championship game that we watch here. Just so much going on here. I mean, even like the boundary corners for the Seahawks, they're really good in man coverage. You're going against like really good man beaters in Puka and Devontae Adams. You have Mike McDonald, who doesn't go for it a lot on fourth down. Like one of the lowest amounts in the NFL for going for it on the fourth down comes from the Seahawks. But then on the other side, you have McVay, who we know likes to be aggressive and trying to go for those conversions. So, dude, I can't wait for this game. I really this to me could end up being like game of the year. Like this could end up being better. I think this game has potential to be better than what the Super Bowl will be. Even though that could be like Seahawks Patriots if it goes the way I'm predicting, but it could. This game could be. I have such high expectations for this game, which is going to be so awesome when it ends like 13-10. But I don't know. There's so many good like top coach down to even like special teams. There's because I mean think about the special teams issues that the Rams have had all year. They had to fire their special teams coordinator. We just saw what the Seahawks did with Rashid on special teams, and he's been doing that for two different teams this year. So there's so many good things for this game, and I can't wait to watch and see what happens.
I can see if we're doing score predictions, I could see this game being 34-20 Seattle.
I wouldn't be surprised if this game ended like 41-35, or if it ended 13-10. Like I said, like either way, I'm like there's so many different ways this game could go, but it's so fun because of the different matchups, like broad and small in this game that you can look at and just be like this. I'm so excited. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really excited for this game. All right. Anything else we need to talk about for the playoffs this weekend?
No, yeah, no, I don't got anything.
Cool. All right. Well, that will be it for us for this edition of the NFL show. Another long but really fun one, man. We had a lot to talk about what happened this past week with, I mean, not even just the games, but just so much drama. The NFL is so good at providing us drama to talk about. We don't always get to fully into it, but we're saving a lot for after the playoffs because we do want to keep the main focus on the games that are happening. And a lot of these coaching vacancies still need to be held. I mean, it seems like everyone's looking for an offensive coordinator, so we'll have plenty to talk about after the Super Bowl as well. But in the meantime, we're focusing on this weekend and having a lot of fun waiting to watch these games. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Really appreciate all the views. We'll continue to post some more on YouTube, as always. So keep a lookout for that on there, as well as our socials. We'll see you again next week to review these two games that are happening and preview the Super Bowl. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I've been Tyler Blankenship. That's Jason Davis. We'll see you all again next week.